Welcome to the lab, everybody. Good to see you tonight on this beautiful Sunday evening. I know it's hot in a lot of places, so that's not always a great feeling, but all right. Let me make sure that my microphone is sounding okay. I just switched the font there. Anyway, good to see you. Welcome to the lab, everybody. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. It's great to have you as always. And we have a special guest, one of the most requested guests that we have on the lab. And you've seen him here. You've seen him on the interview with Chris McDonough. You've seen him on NewsNation, Court TV, and many, many other places. He is the author of The New Evil, Dr. Gary Brucato, Cold Case Foundation, a forensic psychologist, and member of the Cold Case Foundation, as I stated before. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing well. And I know since, Coberger pled guilty, that you've been pulled at and requested and all kinds of stuff. So you've been a busy man.
Well, I think ever since the Dateline episode where a lot of things were revealed that had been on Coberger's phone, it became clear that what it is that we had speculated about him and profiling him even before he was caught was coming to bear. And then I think people might enjoy, it was a really long form article on my theory about him that came out, I think the day before yesterday in the Daily Mail. It's good that I was given an opportunity to kind of put that out there, because I think the serial killer like psychosexual motivations that we glimpse in this offender that appear to be possibly present, but seem to have gotten interrupted and not borne out, they're getting gobbled up right now. For some reason, there's this hyper focus on this Elliot Rodger incel theory.
And I've been hearing a lot of that. And like I said, I covered Elliot Rodgers when it happened, and I don't know about. I mean, you're the pro. I don't know about that though.
Yeah. So
they're different.
Right. Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, if it turned out there was any truth whatsoever to that idea, although there was no Elliot Rodger on his phone, right, that we know of. It was Bundy, right? If there's any whiff of truth to it, it would just imply that Bundy might be who he wished he was, but he might have been like Rodger. But the part that really bugs me is the people who think that the book marked on page 118 that Coberger was reading could be Elliot Rodger's manifesto. That's very silly, because if you know anything about it, I mean, this is a book, like a real book that he had, that he acquired and was studying. And the Elliot Rodger manifesto has not been published like that. You don't go to Barnes and Noble and buy the Elliot Rodger manifesto and mark it up. I mean, that's silly. You can bet that's going to be a Bundy related book. Right. I mean, it was very easy. I went to the store and found a few books on Bundy, and I just went to page 118, and one of them has content I think very nicely matches what I think was going on for Coberger. And it seems pretty clear to me, if I had to make a bet, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's
And no, I don't think it's The Stranger Beside. Because the Coberger would not be interested in what other people said about Bundy. You want to know what Bundy said about Bundy?
Well, you want me to read a little bit of that?
The article?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I thought the author did a really nice job of synthesizing a very long interview.
Yeah, and this is from the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
And give me 1 second here. I'm gonna drink water. So it says, psychologist revealed what Bryan Kohberger was really planning the night of the Idaho murders. It's believed to be his first kill, and the body count was high. 4 students at the start of their exciting journey into adulthood, all murdered in their sleep using a military-style knife. But for mass killer Brian Coberger, the night apparently didn't go as planned. Now, Dr. Gary Brucato, a clinical and forensic psychologist who co-led the largest study ever on mass murders, has revealed what he believes was Coberger's real plot that fateful night in Moscow, Idaho. Quote, I think he planned to sexually assault and kill one victim, Brucato told the Daily Mail. In other words, to attack her sleeping and possibly even remove her from the home. But everything went to hell. His intel failed, and he wound up committing a mass murder. Let's see. And the county prosecutor, excuse me, Bill Thompson revealed during Coberger's plea hearing that the killer did not intend to murder all 4 victims that night, but stopped short of revealing who the intended target was. Brucato believes this one chosen victim was 21-year-old Madison Mogan, based in part on the path Coberger took after breaking into 1122 King Road in the early hours of November 13th, 2022. The killer went straight up to Mogan's room on the 3rd floor, where he found her and her best friend Kaylee Gonsalves sleeping in the same bed, prosecutors revealed. I'm sure he thought the victim was going to be isolated, and he gets in there and is completely caught off guard, Brucato said. Coberger stabbed the 2 best friends to death. On his way back downstairs, he encountered Xana Krenodal on the 2nd floor, who was still awake, having just received a DoorDash order. He killed her, followed by her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, who was asleep in bed. Coberger then left through the back sliding door on the 2nd story, passing roommate Dylan Mortensen, who had been woken by the noise and had peeked round her bedroom door. Mortensen and Bethany, a roommate who was in her room on the 1st floor, were the only survivors. Brucato believes Coberger was shocked to find Gonsalves in the room with Mogan and then to find Krenodal awake, disrupting his plan to assault and kill Mogan. But his decision to kill a sleeping Chapin and the nature of his injuries reveals a special hostility towards finding another man inside the house, he explained. According to a recent Dateline citing police sources, the killer had carved Chapin's legs and then sat down in the chair in Krenodal's room. I think the special hostility towards Ethan, where he takes the time to carve the hamstrings, is because a male interrupted his fantasy, Brucato explained. He had a very particular fantasy. He was very angry, and it's not going as planned. He just killed 3 people before Ethan. He now kills Ethan, who's sleeping and totally defenseless, and he needs to be getting out of Dodge, but instead he takes the time to sit down and carve the hamstrings of Ethan. Why would he do that? I think he had special anger towards the male for interrupting his fantasy before Coberger was even on law enforcement's radar for the murders. Brucato, serial killer expert Dr. Ann Burgess and former FBI profiler Greg Cooper had created a profile of the suspect.
On the interview room, on Chris McDonough, the interview.
And that's a great episode, by the way. So if you haven't seen that.
And Chris was part of creating the profile with Dean Jackson. Also, their names were not given in the article for some reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. This profile found that despite killing 4 victims in a mass murder spanning just 13 minutes, the assailant was no ordinary mass murder or spree killer. Instead, this was the work of a budding serial killer acting out a sexually motivated fantasy to have control and domination over women, Brucato said. When Coberger was then arrested on December 30th, 2020, and more information came out about both both him and the murders. The profile solidified. As the story progressed, it became clear Coberger was doing things that are much more characteristic of serial killers than are of mass murderers, Brucato explained. He pointed to several characteristics and behaviors to back up his theory. Among them is Coberger's cell phone and online history, namely his porn choices, the photos of women on his phone, and his searches for the serial killer Ted Bundy, which were revealed in a recent Dateline show. According to the episode, which sparked an investigation into an apparent evidence leak, Coberger searched for porn containing the words drugged and sleeping. He also reportedly used his phone to browse images of female students from Washington State University and the University of Idaho, many of them in bikinis, and many of them close friends or online followers of 3 murdered women. Coberger also made several internet searches for Bundy, who killed at least 30 women, including female students in a sorority house in Florida. He explained that the pornography of the women drugged or sleeping and the decision to attack his victims at night while they slept is about the desire to express some kind of domination over control over women who were essentially rejecting him, and shows that his victims was interchangeable. Coberger is also believed to have planned to kill for some time. He bought the murder weapon, a K-bar knife, in March, 8 months before the murders. What you have is a person who has fantasy that they're going to kill well before they go and find the victims, he said. That's typical of a serial killer because the victim is just a symbol. I just go out, cast like a casting agent.
Right.
I have a script, and then I go find the women who look the part. Brucato explained that to a serial killer, the first and most important factor is that the person look the part in your fantasy. He calls the serial killer's prototype for Coberger. Brucato said that the pictures of the women on his cell phone show his prototype. He was attracted to young women who symbolized the kind of popular girl who rejected him. He could have spotted Mogan in passing somewhere, found her while trawling social media, or seen on social media account from another woman he met at a party. Though through some kind of happenstance, he crosses paths with the women that he became hyper focused on, who in his mind is the perfect enactment of the fantasy, he said. But you also need it to be practical, like they live in a house that he could easily get into, that is the particular geographic location he wants. Cell phone data revealed by prosecutors show Coberger was in the vicinity of the home 23 times before the murders, mostly at night. And serial killers often live double lives and can masquerade as upstanding citizens, Brucato explained. In Coberger's case, he was studying a PhD in criminology at college.
Josh, let me ask you, are you allowed under fair use to read that much of it? I mean, can you read the whole thing? Do you have to pause?
I almost did, but it doesn't. Yeah, I can read anything.
But I don't know if you're allowed to read the entirety, are you?
I haven't read the whole thing, but
right. That's what I'm saying. Before you do much longer, I mean, I think you're about half through, but I'm not sure. But I will say that
we can stop there. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it goes on to explain that I suspect that he was peeping somehow, probably through the windows, or using TikTok or social media as a way of kind of seeing what was going on in the home. You know, do they have an animal? Where are the windows? Where are the doors, etc. And then I go on to explain that, you know, this guy bought a knife like 8 months before there was even a victim. You know what I mean? To a crime. So my suspicion is that he had a fantasy first. And Caroline, I'm not the author. I'm the person who was interviewed so it wouldn't be fair for me to read it, to read the whole thing. It was written for the Daily Mail. And I go on to say that I think he would have tried to improve on what he did, the mistakes he made, and probably do it again because he had such serial killer. You're welcome, Caroline. It was such serial killer-like intentions going on there. The reason I said that I could even imagine him wanting to take the victim out of the home is because Bundy, who so clearly was admiring, would bludgeon a sleeping woman and then carry her out and take her to a park or something. It's very interesting that Coberger used a park as his alibi, and it's quite suspiciously a park where there was a belief that a deceased woman found was a victim of Bundy. He was asked about that victim on the day of his execution and denied it. Of course, he denied a lot of things. If he had killed that woman, Joy Page, it would have been his first victim, canonical victim. So it's a little interesting that he picks that park. I do wonder if the point was to take her out. I also thought it's very interesting that his pornography centered around sleeping and drugged women. Remember that Bundy was a necrophile and liked to visit women who were dead after the murder. And so I wondered if he had an interest in that. That is how some people with that paraphilic disorder get around the law. They look for videos involving women who are sleeping or drugged. Or I wondered if perhaps it was simply about complete domination over a person who wasn't conscious, so that there's a quality like a person who's deceased, but it was just about the manipulation of a person. Of course, when a person's sleeping, they can't judge you. They can't see that you're a kind of a loser, and that you're inadequate, that you don't know what you're doing, and all these other kinds of things, because he would have been completely inadequate based on everything we know. Inadequate personality, kind of a guy who can only think of himself having a connection with a person by force, or this kind of mechanical, weird, detached way. He wasn't smooth or slick in any way. Nothing like Bundy in that sense, you see. But the article is a very good one. I was really, really pleased that they gave me a chance to, in the long form, article format, to kind of go on about what I think happened, because it was the first place in writing that you see this kind of synthesized hypothesis that he was serial killer-like, that there was a psychosexual motivation, that he had a fantasy for like at least 8 months, buys a knife, falls into the obsession with Bundy, starts honing in on a symbolic victim, gets in there, when he finally has the nerve to do it, after a kind of D-Day decision, because he's getting in trouble at work with the way he's treating women, and then discovers Kaylee there, discovers, Xana. Ethan is asleep. He's got special hostility toward him. And of course, part of the reason there's an emphasis on maybe Kaylee was the primary target is because the attack was so ferocious on her. But I think that's because she interrupted the fantasy. He was furious at her for interrupting the fantasy. So I think what's happening is this misreading of some of the ideas that come out of the experts that I work with every day, that the ferociousness of the attack suggests deeper emotionality, and therefore maybe he had a personal thing for her that wasn't present with the other people. But I really think it's that he was furious at her because he didn't expect her there, and also I think she put up a fight.
Why would he go through with it, though?
Go through with what?
The killings. So he goes up to her room and finds out that her friend Kaylee is in bed with her. Why not just abort?
Too late. It was too late then. It was do or die. I mean, he first of all, she was probably attacking him, and he has to he's certainly not gonna. This guy with this psychology is gonna let a woman beat him. He's gonna leave without taking her life. No, I think the idea was that he's totally misogynistic. He gets in there, he views these women as basically interchangeable. He's got one that symbolizes, the focused fantasy. Nothing goes as planned, and then there's the question of why the sheath falls. I think the sheath falls because he gets interrupted by Xana. But one of the things that has always disturbed me is the question of whether he had the sheath on his belt and he was opening his belt, or something like that, and the sheath came off. But because there is such a clear psychosexual quality to the offense, we don't know what he was thinking about doing in that room. But the sheath comes off. It was snapped on, so it could have just come off from the kerfuffle that was going on. But I think that something the article doesn't say is that he's interrupted by Xana. It says that on his way down he sees her, but I think she actually interrupted him, and he became upset and chased after her. And then he sees her boyfriend sleeping in the bed and kills him with one thrust of the blade, and then takes the time to cut up his calves for no reason other than, he's supposed to be getting out of there. He's got 2 other people alive in the house. Why would he do that? It's a kind of a signature thing to do. He was experimenting, special rage towards the male, that kind of thing. So, this is a serial killer-like behavior. This is not the behavior of a mass murderer.
Yeah, and so he was set up to sort of test and improve upon, sort of like Bundy. But I mean, that's kind of what everybody does that get into this horrible.
Well, not improve upon. I think he just identified with him. My sense is that
improve upon his own process, not
Bundy. Right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that when the smoke clears and this guy starts to talk, and it's already in the papers that he's supposedly made a deal already to do that, and who knows if that's accurate.
Well, Enton's saying it's not, but who knows?
I mean, who knows? I mean, because if you have it out there that he's agreed to talk, then all the people who are racing to be first to get in there will abandon ship, because they'll think this is already a deal, right? So who knows if that was what the reason, if that's true or a strategy or whatever. But I have no idea. But
right.
But once he starts to talk, if he is interviewed by a competent person who understands that much of what he says is going to be a fib or kind of exaggeration or distortion or whatever, there are techniques that need to be used to get him to talk. And I think what you're going to see is the identification with Bundy is probably that Bundy spoke about himself as being sort of fragmented, like he had a kind of good side and a bad side, like the better angel and the worse angel kind of thing. And I think that what you would have seen in Coberger is that that kind of sense of, look, here I am in a program. I could be doing a pro-social thing. I'm battling my own dark side. I'm overcoming drug use. I'm, trying to get my life together. But all these people hate me. No matter what I do, these women don't seem to like me. Everything that comes out of my mouth is weird. People here don't think I'm as special as people thought I was at home.
You think that he would be that self-aware?
I mean, I think that, look, I don't know if he's really on the spectrum. That is something he was diagnosed with later in life. I mean, during the evaluation related to his case. I didn't see him, so I don't know. But, I think that there is definitely some kind of strange lack of awareness. But the thing that doesn't jive with him being completely unaware of what other people think of him is that he clearly was really good at passing, to the point that, like, for example, his professor, who was leading authority on serial killers, doesn't catch that he's got, right? So that teaches us something about how he must have had the capacity to conceal it. And you wouldn't expect that in a person who was just awkward all the time and letting it loose, that kind of thing. And also, that's a female. That teacher was a female. So if he's got that hostility, why is he not showing that hostility to all females? Does he have a kind of hierarchy in his mind of, there's certain ones that I respect, ones I don't? We know, for example, that Coberger had a date, which is part of why I don't think he's an incel. I think that women liked him sometimes, but then he weirded them out.
Yeah.
So he messed it up because he was inadequate. I think he wouldn't know what to do probably if he had a chance. So he's more weird than an incel, right? So like he goes on a date, and on the date, he tells the woman who takes him upstairs to her home, where there probably could have been some intimacy or maybe a chance of it. He says he wants to tickle her. Right. Or another example is that, he's got this preoccupation with Margaret Atwood and The Handmaid's Tale. Tells this woman that he wanted to tickle that she had nice birthing hips. I mean, I think what you have is a guy who thinks of women as, you know, they're basically like here to make babies and stay in the kitchen, that kind of thing. Old, you know, misogynistic thinking. And then on the other hand, he's got women that he totally sexually objectifies based on the pornography. He doesn't even want them to have any control, power, whatever. Objects, right? As allegedly Innocent puts it. That division is very typical of the way some of these people see, serial killers, especially see women, and makes you wonder about his family dynamics, his mom, you know, how that figured into his relationship with his professor, you know, some respect he might have had for it. We don't know. But all I know is there's something to that. Another example is that we learned from Dateline, the Dateline episode, is that there was a Korean exchange student that was interested in him, but he had no interest in her. And he, you know, some of her prized possessions go missing. Next thing you know, he's helping her install surveillance. And then she starts thinking that he's using it to watch her.
I mean, would you?
I mean, how much more serial killer do you get?
Say, would you put it past?
But what I'm trying to point out is that's not an incel.
No,
an incel doesn't have options. They don't feel. That's like Elliot Rodger. No matter what he did, nobody wanted him.
He
wanted to be with women, and they didn't want him.
He was a complete
Coberger, right? Coberger, women wanted him, but he was too bizarre to know what he was doing appropriately with it, so he weirds everybody out, and it ends. And you know, this notion of him as someone that no one had interest in is not borne out by the facts. It's just that he was weird. So I think that whole incel thing gets overblown with him. He was just a garden variety misogynist who was inadequate. And there's a lot of those, and they're not all incels. Some of them are even in relationships.
Surprisingly, that's true. And yeah, the difference between Elliot Rodgers and Coberger is that Coberger could sort of have a conversation, and then, like you said, they find out that, you know, he's weird. Elliot was weird just from his mannerisms, the way he walked, the way, and he didn't
hide his anger. He didn't attempt to hide it. I mean, he threw somebody off a balcony at a party. He wasn't slick trying to.
And then he got beat up. And then
right.
He also, I believe, a girl said something to him one time, and he threw his, I think it was his Starbucks coffee at her, or something like that.
He was seriously misogynist. It's, in other words, they both have issues with women, right? But that's like saying cats have tails and dogs have tails, so dogs are cats, right? They have something in common, but that doesn't make them the same,
right?
Okay, and you know, it's a kind of fallacy. And and the other thing is, Coberger has Bundy all over his phone, not Rodger.
Yeah,
it doesn't make. He's cosplaying as Bundy, not as Rodger.
He didn't look up to somebody like Elliot Rodger. He was more, like you said, the Bundy. That's who he was looking at. That's where he studied. I mean, he went to Washington, for God's sake, Bundy's quote unquote old stomping grounds. So it was, you know, obviously the Elliot Rodger thing to me doesn't fit, and I'm glad that you kind of feel the same way about it, because it's just not.
No, it's an overly
the way that he went about his attack.
Right, but Josh, the reason that people went down this rabbit hole is because of the Papa Rogers thing. You remember Papa Roger, the person that was inserting into the. Okay, now I'm not saying these things are mutually exclusive. There's no reason in the world that couldn't be him. But what I'm saying is that if there's a difference between who you want to be and who you identify with. You see what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. No,
right.
Completely.
So that's what I'm saying. And I think probably you're going to hear a lot about that incel theory soon, and it'll be presented like it's the be-all and end-all explanation of what went on here. Just remember the back of your head who was on his phone, what he was looking at. Right, there's the
there's Papa.
Right. So I don't see these things as mutually exclusive. I just don't think that Elliot Rodger, who by the way was a spree killer, and killed himself. Coberger would never have killed himself. Too arrogant.
Yeah. Well, what were you? So before this, you were on NewsNation, right?
Yes, I was on NewsNation talking about the anniversary of the Crooks shooting of the president when he was running for re-election.
Yeah.
And I broke down the subtypes of assassin.
How'd that go? I mean, did you?
I think it went well. I got good feedback on it. I mean, I didn't know how long I was going to get to be on, so I just sort of laid out the subtypes in my academic, long-winded way, and then next thing you know, it was over. But I tried to explain that it really wasn't a politically motivated offense because he was looking at a whole bunch of targets who were all over the political map. Everyone from Fani Willis to Merrick Garland to Biden to Trump. I mean, so it wasn't political. He just wanted infamy. It's sort of like Andrew Cunanan, how Andrew Cunanan killed Versace, but that was because he couldn't get to Madonna or Tom Cruise or any of the other people he had his eyes on. Yet the point is simply to gain infamy by killing a famous person. And those type of people tend to be kind of depressed and suicidal, and they want to go out in a blaze, And then what happens is, it's like you look up the famous person on the internet or in the encyclopedia or something, and their name is forever linked with the person who killed them.
Yeah.
They parasitically gain fame. By it, so you can't look up Versace without seeing Cunanan. See?
No, that's true. Yeah, and
parasites. They're parasites.
Absolutely. So we were gonna take some calls tonight, and are you still up for that?
Sure.
Yeah, I know people love to call in and pick the good doctor's brain. Because, yeah. So let me just put that out, and then.
Just to clarify for somebody in the audience, I'm saying that Andrew Cunanan killed Versace, who was a spree killer who had that same quality of just wanting infamy. So he just wanted to kill a really famous person. And that's very different than a person who's politically motivated or thinks he's saving the world by eliminating the political figure, or a psychopath who's just stirring up anarchy, or a psychotic person, right? Like Richard Lawrence, who tried to kill Andrew Jackson in 1835, thought that he was Richard III, who died in 1485. I mean, they acquitted him and put him in an institution the rest of his life, right? So, I mean, there's that kind too. So it's like psychosis, psychopathy, the kind of politically motivated martyr who wants to die on the altar of a cause and save the world, in their mind, or this attention seeker.
And Bonita, thank you for becoming a lab member. I appreciate that very much. Karen Thompson, thank you. Bonita and Lulu gifted 5 lab memberships. Also, Miss Sharon. So the link is pinned. And we'll take as many as we can. I don't know how many we'll get through, and if we don't get to you, I apologize, but we will do everything that we can to get to as many people as possible. I know that the doctor is in high demand, so.
But let me just emphasize that I'm not going to address clinical questions. These are general true crime kind of questions, right? Yes, please don't call in and say, I'm calling about my son who ... or I'm calling about, that I am suffering from ... I will not be able to address that in anything but the most general terms, where I simply say I can't answer that, and change the subject. It's just not appropriate for the call in. And also, of course, we won't countenance anybody who uses this platform to attack the host or me or anybody.
Particularly the host, but you too.
Well, there are people like that, who sad little characters who
correct
need to do that. Yes.
Let me see here.
Who don't realize that they can get themselves in trouble for doing so.
Yeah, there's not many boundaries, are there?
When people do crazy defamatory things, they don't realize they can get in trouble.
All right, let's see here. All right, so beautiful messy ball. We're gonna take your call. Can you turn your camera off? And then
They can't be on camera if they want to, Josh.
I don't
Probably
know.
safer to not yet.
It's a lot. Say yeah, it's for everybody's well-being. Trust me. Let me. Okay. All right, beautiful messy ball. You there?
Yep, I'm here. I don't mind being on camera though.
Oh, it's all right. Now we don't. I usually don't put anybody on camera. Just voice.
Okay. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Where-
so
Where are you calling from, please?
the Jersey Shore.
Oh, okay. Hello. I know it well.
I do too. So my question is, it's kind of complicated, but do you think that there's a chance that this whole thing was almost in a way part of his studies, and that
You mean Coberger? You're talking about Coberger.
yes,
Yeah.
Coberger. Sorry, I'm still on the Coberger. And that he has been studying us this whole time and possibly has someone on the outside that is Papa Roger studying us and our behaviors. Like, oh, now I'm going to blank out because I'm on the spot. The Don't F with Cats guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Who was doing like he was the internet killer. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes. Well, first of all, you have to remember that when you look at people who have these kind of characteristics, and there is not a very overt sexual motive, right? We don't see semen or other evidence that is very, a prophylactic is left there, video footage, whatever. Where it's not crystal clear that that's what's going on. That type of offender will assert domination and control in a bunch of ways to compensate, to have that same motivation, but without that outlet, right? And so with that type, the Son of Sam type, and by the way, Son of Sam we saw on the Dateline episode was also on his phone, right? He was also looking at Son of Sam. The Son of Sam type, or the Zodiac Killer type, or even Ted Kaczynski to a certain extent, those types assert control through like manipulation of the media, writing letters, things like that. And I do think that the Coberger personality would have been such that he would be watching everything said about him. We know from the Dateline episode that he was watching podcasts and so forth that were about him. I have no doubt that he would have watched the episode of The Interview Room where Ann Burgess and Greg Cooper, who was the former head of the behavioral science unit for the FBI, Dean Jackson, Chris McDonough, and I profiled him quite well, I have to say. And I think that he would have been really sort of offended and interested at the same time. Incidentally, when that episode aired, somebody wrote into the chat, he is going to be arrested in Pennsylvania. And to this day, I have wondered if that was Coberger or somebody who knew what was happening behind the scenes. It's just too correct. So yeah, I do think that he was watching everything, and I think probably throwing red herrings out there into the community, and I think that's part of the unconscious process of being confused about whether he was more of like the person on the side of law enforcement or the offender, right? So he sees himself as kind of being useful and whatever, but he's also defending himself and throwing fibs out there and all that. So it's entirely possible he asserted himself in some way. Now, to your point about, do I think that it's all part of his studies or whatever? It's interesting because on a meta level, he did have this kind of fascination with crime as an intellectual pursuit and would communicate with offenders about what they felt when they did whatever. on some meta level, this is an experimenter kind of personality who also would have been interested to see what it feels like to do the thing you're studying. That's why I've said many times that I think that stupid alibi about the park and the stargazing was very telling, because it's so metaphorical, right? Like, I am studying the stars, but I can never touch them. And if you touch one, it destroys you, right? So this is the kind of guy that will know everything about a subject but never touch it. Like the theologian who has never met God, knows everything about the subject but has never met him in the physical sense.
That's a great analogy.
Unless you count the Eucharist in Roman Catholicism, then we think you've actually physically touched God. Or another example would be the person who studies a historical figure that they're never going to meet. They know everything about, Abraham Lincoln, but they're never going to meet Lincoln, right? So it's that kind of thing. I think, remember that scientist who created a scale to measure how much insect bites hurt? And to get it accurate, he actually started letting insects bite him.
Yeah, then
he'd be like, his descriptions are amazing. They're like blinding pain, whatever. And it's so I think there's a little of that with Coberger too. He wanted to kind of see what it really felt like, this thing that he had been meticulously studying and all that. So there's some of that, but at the end of the day, it's a psychosexual fantasy fueled, unfortunately, by disturbing pornography and probably looking outside the window, all that, and it's just not enough eventually, and then the person, like a drug addict, needs a higher and higher thrill, and then they go in. The drug addict like quality to killing is very underappreciated by the general public, but in the world of research, we're very interested in it. For example, Fallon talks about how it may be that there are certain hormones that build up in the amygdala of the brain, and then when the person kills, they're released. The person experiences a kind of satiation, like a person who has had an orgasm or has had a drug, shot up a drug. Now that doesn't mean that that's the reason they did it, but it means that it's sort of adding that high is fueling some of it. They need a greater and greater high. So it's just not enough after a little while to look at pornography. They need more ferocious pornography, more inappropriate pornography, they have to do things that require greater risks. And then, but Tommy Lynn Sells, the serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells, spoke about experiencing orgasm when he would cut a victim's throat, and that it felt to him like a drug release.
Yeah, and he said he chased it. He chased it forever. Yeah.
He chased it.
Tommy was disgusting, but he was very honest about a lot of things.
We should do an episode on him.
I would love.
His biographer is a dear friend of mine.
I would love to.
His biographer, Diane Fanning, who wrote recently a book about Lizzie Borden, and if you look at it, it says in the dedication that it was inspired by a conversation I had with her.
Okay, very nice. I would love to.
Yeah.
Coberger was a drug addict before, and
correct.
Addicts. We also, anyone who knows anything about addicts, one way to replace an addiction is with another addiction.
Another addiction, exactly. And he certainly had a compulsive quality.
Right.
And we see a lot of collecting behavior and things like that in that type of person. That's the kind of person who would have kept trophies, and we know that he had some, like a rubber glove with IDs in it. We still don't know whose IDs they were.
Right.
Things like that. That's why it's so hard for me to believe he got rid of the knife. That's a type of person who would need to keep something to control it.
Yeah.
But if he did, he would have thrown it into probably the Snake River. I know Chris McDonough has said that, has theorized that. But this is the thing. If he did, he's so compulsive, he would need to go out and get exactly the same knife and sheath again.
Do you think he could have or would have buried it somewhere along the Snake River where he could have where he knows where it is and could go back and get it when he wanted?
My sense is that the only reason he would have gotten rid of it is if he really thought that it was going to get rid of it, and you'd have to do something smarter than burying it where a dog could dig it up or something. He would just throw it in the river, probably.
That's true. I didn't think about it.
Especially if he researched crime. But I think that it's interesting that he was replacing the knife and the sheath. He tried to get them on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah. So it tells you something about this guy's brain,
Yeah. All right. We got
lovely call. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.
Of course. I hope that was good.
All right.
Who is Adolf? Somebody named Adolf is saying hello to us in the private chat. Are they a call?
They're not there anymore.
Okay.
I got them. Right. So now we have Lisa. Lisa, where are you calling from? Lisa, you there? Lisa's not there.
I think there was a Lisa that called in the previous episode and had
Yeah, this is
trouble.
This is different. A different person. Lisa, are you there? No Lisa so far. Okay. Let me see here. By the way, did you watch the new I think it's one night in Moscow or something like that? Or
I didn't watch it. I heard about it, but I'll watch it. I'm a little, I have like a moral conundrum about Coberger. Part of me, I hate that I have to talk about him and like contribute to the media sphere about him. But the thing is, we have to study him, unfortunately, because we have to learn, how this guy slipped through the cracks and all that. But I know some of the family members. I'm very sensitive to how they're feeling. I am so upset for them about how this all went down, So, but if what I'm seeing in the chat is true, that there's a more of a focus on the victims, then I might be interested in seeing that. I probably will watch it then.
I gotta check. Yeah, I saw little bits and pieces, but all right. Let's see if Lisa, are you there? All right, we had about 4 people. Lisa, hello. All right. Well, anyway, links at the top if you want to call in and ask a question. I don't know. It's more about the victims. That's fantastic. It's I'll have to check it out. I have a problem. I remember when Netflix came out with the Gabby Petito, documentary. I just, I don't know how much more. Like I never watched it, so I watched very, very few documentaries like that. Like I did watch the Chris Watts one. That was like the American Tragedy. It was called.
I can't stand talking about Chris Watts.
He's the worst too. I mean, he's a terrible person. But yeah, no, I know it's on Amazon Prime. I'm just saying that the Netflix one about Petito, and so we'll try Lisa one more time, and then Lisa, are you there? I don't think Lisa's there. All right. Lisa's off. Come back up, Lisa.
Is the Lisa that's on the screen, Lisa J911, the person that's calling in?
No, different person. That was the one that was having problems the last time.
I think Lisa J911 I've communicated with at some point. Is a very kind person, but I don't know who the person is that's calling in.
No, I don't know who that is either, but she did.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think I may have at some point, because I get messages all the time from people, so I sort of remember the names.
Yeah, we had a full backstage here just a minute ago, and I don't know. I have no idea what happened. Maybe we went too long. I don't know. Sometimes we do.
We weren't very long.
I didn't think so.
Anybody?
Yeah, there's somebody. It looks like somebody's trying.
Bueller.
The troll took him out. Took who out? No, it wasn't you.
Trolls are the worst.
Yeah, they really are. We don't get too many over here, though.
So if someone in the audience who has a name that references Napoleon Dynamite, which tickles me to no end. Eat the food, Tina. With Mama says that they want to call in, but they don't know how. Can you
click the link at the top and it'll prompt you? Okay, we got. I don't want to say your full name, but go ahead, Linda. You're on the air.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, Josh and Dr. Gary.
My God, what an energy you've got. I love it. I thought Ethel Merman was calling in.
I watch you guys all the time.
Ethel Merman.
Well, she gets it.
Yeah, she's dead. I'm not quite that old yet.
No, but I know you get the joke.
Yeah, I do.
Remember how she would build?
Yeah. I have a couple questions. One is, do you think Brian Kohlberg will survive in prison, or someone will try to off him because they want to make a name for themselves?
Well, this is a very complicated question. First of all, if he really is somebody who studied Bundy meticulously, I think he would probably fantasize about escaping. Remember that Bundy did twice. Lost a lot of weight, was able to slip through the ceiling vent. Remember that whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then killed more. But regarding risks to him, I think it boils down to if the autism diagnosis that he got and other aspects of him are used to mitigate the sentence for him, where he needs some kind of isolation, mental health services, things like that. For example, you might argue that somebody on the spectrum would have a very hard time in the overly stimulating environment of general population. I mean, I do mitigation cases in my forensic work, right? And so I could see somebody making that kind of argument. But if he is in a general population situation, I mean, I just saw an article today. I sent it to you, Josh, right? What was the podcast about how, some people claim that he's already kind of on the radar of people that dislike him. And
Jumpsuit Pablo is the channel name and Jumpsuit Pablo, I think he did like a good 10 years in prison, and he's got a very unique perspective. And his channel,
you thought it was a good video, right?
Absolutely. I like Jumpsuit Pablo. Very cool.
So I sent it earlier to so there's a shout out to so I think it's an interesting question, but I think he's so arrogant and so clueless socially, so inadequate and insecure. It's really hard to imagine what it would be like if he were in a general population situation. And there are a lot of people, for example, in prison that have sisters or mothers that they loved who would look at him and see him as no different than the way they would feel about a sex offender or somebody that they'd say, "Oh, you pathetic loser! You had to go in while someone was sleeping and do this to them," and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think he's going to have a lot of enemies. But his personality is not exactly warm and toasty. I mean, he doesn't fight friends, I mean, he hasn't exactly read, how to win friends and influence people. And I think that what'll probably happen is a kind of Dennis Rader-like situation where he's in a, private place, isolated, and writing to people, probably getting fan mail from people who want his autograph and people who want to know his motives, and probably some women that are attracted to him. And it's pathetic, but you can imagine all of that stuff going on because it happens with all these guys.
Oh, it's totally pathetic. Yeah. I don't understand people who want to contact people in prison who've done such heinous things.
Well, I have to.
Just like Chris Watts, he's got all these fan mail, and I just don't understand that. But the other question I want to ask Dr. Gary is, I know you can't diagnose him, but would you classify him as a psychopath or a sociopath? Because my understanding, and I may be wrong, is a sociopath is made, but a psychopath is born. I
have a problem with the distinction between sociopathy and psychopathy that the general population is sort of made up. The term changed more when people were trying to think about the origin of being a psychopath, the way that psychopathy was defined by people like Keckley and Hare. And the idea is it used to be called moral insanity. And then at some point they called it sociopathy, because the idea was that the pathology was in the way you hurt people, that it had to do with the socialization being the issue. And then they said, no, there's something wrong with these people's brains. There's a pathology that's in the psyche. So then it was a psychopath. And then and then antisocial personality disorder is like the watered down version of that, because you have to understand that the DSM, which doesn't include the word psychopath, the DSM tries to be completely medical and kind of objective. So the problem is that a lot of the traits of a psychopath that Hare talks about are not objective. They're felt, like finding a person glib and charming and slick and things like that. So if you just take only the objective, you wind up having to take out the worst of the worst traits of a lot of these guys, and then you wind up with antisocial personality disorder. The reality is these are all different names for the same phenomenon. So what I think is that I think that he's on the spectrum of, moral insanity, sociopathy, psychopathy, antisocial personality? I don't know, because you'd have to examine him, but if you look at the Hare checklist, I mean, there are some traits there, right? But I would leave that up to someone else, to do that, because I don't want to diagnose him without meeting him.
Right.
But I would say that you could look at the Hare checklist and see if there are some traits, because that's publicly available easily, even though it probably shouldn't be, and see for yourself if you think that he has features. But I wouldn't go around diagnosing it. Leave that up to. Notice though that at the time he was evaluated for the trial, they went out of their way to say that they didn't want the word psychopath used. Right, which is, you remember that they went out of their way to do that. It's very important. Now, let me put it to this way. Psychopathic people, particularly serial killers or people who might want to be serial killers or who are motivated like them, about half of them are those kind of slick Ted Bundy types that are socially adept. They have empathy enough to read the feelings of other people and have conversation with them, but then ultimately they hurt them. They don't care about them. And then the other half are these more schizoid autistic types. And that's not autism the way that the general population thinks of it. It means that kind of mechanical detachment where you think of people like frogs in a tray that you can dissect because you're intellectually interested about it. And when that is also present, a person who is callous and fearless and has psychopathic-like traits can do things that are especially gruesome. So think of like Ed Kemper or Dahmer or somebody like that. And we have a hint of that in Coberger with the mutilation, the totally unnecessary mutilation of Ethan's legs, for example.
I didn't understand that at all. Yeah.
Well, I think that, as I said earlier, I think it has to do with somebody a male interrupting a fantasy. So
yeah, that's right.
Right. So there's an experimental quality. And the other thing is that Coberger had a kind of sadistic quality in the sense that he liked to condescend and intellectually torment people to make them feel stupid, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, personally, if I ever met him, that wouldn't work. As Sherlock Holmes said, I have no need to inspire confidence in others. I have quite enough of my own. I really couldn't care less. I mean, I have a lot of people who don't like me in this world, but I know my motives and who I am, and I don't care. And I certainly am not concerned about him thinking I'm an idiot. Yeah. So there is that kind of thing. I mean, that he wouldn't have that weapon if I were to speak to him. But I think that with most people, what would happen is that he would pick up on some insecurity in you, which is not typical of an autistic, by the way. He would notice something about you, and he would try to make you feel terrible about yourself. Say, like, mock you about that thing. And he would have especially eaten you apart if he felt that you were a woman who had any power whatsoever.
I see.
But it's a great question. I really appreciated your call, and I hope that that helped.
Yeah, yes, it does. And just one more thing, Josh.
Yeah.
And this has been a while ago. I watched all of your stuff, but especially with Summer Wells, you wrote a letter to her, and I want you to. And I did comment on it in the comments after you did that. And I know this is off topic, but that was such a wonderful letter that you wrote to her.
Oh yes,
You
I
are
love that.
you are such a caring person, and you don't find that very often, someone who cares so much that they want this solved. And I know you're really deep into this, especially with all the interviews you've had with Dawn. But
Yeah.
anyway, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you, and you writing that letter, and how much it touched me. And I love watching you, because you do seem such a kind, compassionate, caring person. And that, you really care about things. And so that's another reason I watch you. And I love it when Dr. Gary's on too. And Chris Madonna, I know you have him, Madonna, or ever how you pronounce it, on him a lot too. And I watch him on the interview room. And I don't want to take up everybody else's time, but I just appreciate you, both of you, very, very much. And so glad I got to be able to talk to you tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. First, thank you for saying that. And yeah, I believe Chris is at a wedding, and we love Chris so much. He's an awesome part of what we do, and
Dear friend. Yeah.
He's an absolute dear friend. But thank you so much, and I appreciate that.
Sure. And Dr. Gary, I know you mentioned a lot in your comments about Lizzie Borden. I would love for you guys to do a show on her.
Oh, I'm writing about her with Ann Burgess.
I have done so much research on her, and I've read every book I can find on her.
Oh.
So if you could ever do a show like that, that would be great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll let you go.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
But Ann Burgess and I are writing a chapter about that for the book we're doing on the Cold Case Foundation.
I don't know that much about Lizzie Borden. I mean, I know a little bit, but
she did it. She got away with it. Next story.
Yeah, it happens.
So, but anybody who thinks she didn't do it is like one of those people like total fantasy land. But yes, of course she did it.
Yeah.
But so
all right, got another one.
Moving along.
Go right into it. Go ahead and turn your back
box again.
Turn your background, whatever you're listening to, off, and then we'll take your call. Are you there, Dee? I don't know if Dee's there yet. Gwen, let me see. Gwen, thank you for gifting 5 lab memberships. That's very kind. And also Kelsey, thank you for gifting 5 lab memberships. That's very kind. And to the people that received those memberships, welcome. All right, let's see here. Dee, you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Can now. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Good. Where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm here. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Has Dee called us before?
I believe so.
Dee, haven't you called us before?
Yes, I have.
Are you the person who does the knitting?
Yes.
Dr. Gary does knitting too.
No, I don't. That's
yes.
But that's fascinating. But I remember you because I remember we had a really nice conversation last time. So how can we help you today? What yarn can we spin for you today?
I knew you were gonna do something.
Let's have a ball.
If there is any like downtime, you're gonna throw. I knew you were gonna do something.
There's no way. There is no way that I'm not gonna make puns. If you
oh my gosh, I have so much feedback.
I'm gonna make some. Oh, she's got a lot of feedback. So we're gonna let you.
Yeah, just ask the question, and then we'll try and expand on it.
You can contact us in some other way. You can send a cable. No, but seriously, folks,
here we go.
Tip your waitresses.
But
drop a line.
Drop a line. Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, you're scaring her.
I'm a nitwit.
Yeah.
No, I just had so much feedback. What my question was Brian Koberger as antisocial?
Oh, that's exactly the question that the previous person asked. And the answer is that, I mean, I'm not going to diagnose him, but you could take a look yourself to see if he has characteristics of that. But let's just say that if I'm right that he has more of a serial killer like quality, the vast majority of those people have those kinds of personality traits, because the person is simply operating out of a fantasy and feels entitled and fearless enough to do that. And so already you start seeing some of the psychopathic traits that Hare talks about. But I leave that up to other people who have examined him or whatever to say. But I would certainly think it would be something somebody's going to want to find out now that he's a self-confessed murderer with no clear motive, and all the clues pointing to psychosexual gratification. I think we have to start to wonder. So, any other thing I could do to help you?
No, D's got some stuff to unwind.
All right. Well, that was my blanket answer, and
thank you, D. If it clears up, please call back in, and we always appreciate you. Okay, Christina, we're gonna go to you. Make sure that you're.
We had them in stitches, Jeff. with our knitting drill.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's ridiculous.
They got really bad after a little while there.
Well, you kind of run out of jokes about yarn and knitting and lines eventually.
We don't run out.
Well, I mean, you run out of the good ones, because you're a couple of yards short of a full ball of yarn too.
Definitely unraveling.
Christina, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Seattle, Washington.
Oh,
Fraser country.
I was thinking more of Bundy.
Well, yes, there's that.
Frasier is one of my favorite shows. So
he's a microcosm of you.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you, Josh, for your show and for being so pragmatic. You're a good listener, and you just seem to be an all around nice guy.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
It turns to me, it's going to be bad news. And you, Dr. Gary, I could talk about you.
No, I'm a huge fan, and I've bought your book. I'm haven't gotten too much into it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, and how far have you gotten in?
I've just kind of scanned it at this point. I'm actually a school psychologist. And so I work with kids, and my handle name is actually Eat the Food Tina. So that's
you.
Yeah,
you're the one who likes Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
Don't get Josh and me started on that movie.
Oh, I know. Wasn't that a great movie?
I have a thing for that movie. It's a soft spot of mine. Josh, you love it too, right?
What movie? Sorry.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's like her name is a reference to
one of my emails is Joshua Dynamite.
There you go.
Because of Napoleon Dynamite.
But remember, her name is a reference to when goes out to feed the llama.
Yes, no, I'm
Tina. Food, Tina.
Huge fan.
Food, Tina.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Kip. The relationship of Kip and LaFonda.
But wait, I can do the
greatest love stories of our time.
Dr. Gary, listen to this really quick. I can do a pretty good impression of Kip. Are you ready?
Online all day with hot
babes
or whatever.
Napoleon, don't be jealous because I've been chatting with babes online all day.
Make yourself a dang quesadilla, Napoleon.
Oh,
I forgot the crystals.
Yeah.
See, I love that movie. I have a soft spot for it, and I love when the cousin says that he could throw the
uncle
the meat over the mountains.
And he chucks it and hits him right in the face.
Right.
I love
My
that.
mom goes to college.
Your mom goes to college. That's one of my favriends.
It's out of nowhere, just in the background. It's so fun.
It's like
Right.
to make a, and of course there's Pedro,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah. No, I love that movie because
But isn't that Pedro or the guy that votes?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
vote for Pedro. Yeah.
Vote for
Pedro, he's the best. I'll make her a cake or something.
Very kind of him, huh?
Great
Yeah.
movie.
Awesome movie. My kids like to give me a hard time because my name is Tina, and so they like to say, eat the food, Tina, like that. So it's just always been kind of a a fun movie in my background.
That is it is a great movie. It's one of my favorites.
All right. Well, all that having been said, I hope that disarmed you before you attacked. No, I'm only kidding. So
yes.
so tell me what's on your mind.
No, I'm a huge fan of yours, Dr. Gary. But what I'm wondering is, besides the what everyone wants to ask Coberger, why he did this, and I'm not even certain that he knows why, but I'm curious what if you could interview him, Dr. Gary, what would you want to ask him?
Well, first of all, I think there's a pretty good chance I probably am eventually going to interview him.
Oh,
but I mean,
cool.
I really think so. But for a lot of reasons, I suspect that. But because once everything dies down with the media circus, he'll just be sitting in there, and anybody who wants to make an arrangement to meet with him can. And that has nothing to do with wanting to aggrandize him or anything like that. I just think you need to understand him to know how to catch this stuff in the future. Not attention. I just want to understand him. Now, it's a really good question. I think in a lot of ways, the questionnaire that he wrote, where he was asking questions of offenders, is kind of a blueprint of what he wishes somebody would ask him, about what was going on in phenomenologically for him, like inside of himself. And I think those questions would be a good place to start, to say, well, now it's your turn. What did it feel like? What steps would you do differently? Whatever, the same way that he. And I thought it was very interesting. It was pointed out by Victor Petrecca, who's a doctor I work with at college, work at Bus College with Ann Burgess.
Smart guy.
And he pointed out that it was very unusual that Coberger mentions depression in that questionnaire. You wouldn't expect that in let's say, a psychopath or something. It's kind of odd to wonder about that if it was a kind of a period of self-loathing and whatever that sort of was in there. And I think there's got to be a hook with this kind of person. Now, I watched him in the courtroom, on screen, and he was as dead in the eyes as,
Oh, yeah.
Pennywise, with the dead lights, just absolutely dead in the soul. And it was horrifying. And he didn't even look at the victims' families. I mean, no care whatsoever. He asked him if he killed. He responded with a yes that almost sounded like it was coming from, like when AI reads a comment and it has that robotic sound, And what I think is, I'd like to know, first of all, I'd like to know a little bit about the childhood antecedents of what happened with him, because there's like this black box of what went on in his home. So that's very interesting. I would like to know how drug use figured into things, because like Bundy, with whom he identified, alcohol was kind of a come on for him. Like he would loosen his a little bit, whatever. And I think there may be an underestimation of the role of heroin for Coberger. So we definitely want to think about that. I want to think about why Bundy was of such interest to him. I think it had a little bit to do with that fragmentation of the self. Am I a pro-social person, or am I an anti-social person? Am I, a helper or a herder? Can I contain this or not? Do I have to live a double life? How will my family feel if they find out these things about me? So I think there's a little bit of an identification with that. I'd like to know where the prototype came from, of the kind of woman that he hated or idealized, who in his family, who in his life he might be symbolically idealizing or devaluing. I'd like to know that. And I also think that I'd like to know if he tried to fight it. You know, if, like, for example, when he was circling the house, did some part of him say, "Don't do this," you know, "Go home," or, you know, what is it that kept him from doing it sooner? I also want to know, for the purpose of understanding other offenders, did he pick them partially for pragmatic reasons? You know, like, it's easy to get into that house, right? Or were the
Right.
interchangeable? We know that there were a lot of conspicuously young and attractive women on his phone, right? I mean, his idea that he was just trolling and saw them as interchangeable. I mean, we know about his dating habits. It certainly seems that he would hone in on somebody who thought it was attractive and then would just, like, be relentless and weird, but then could easily turn to someone else, right? It's not like falling in love. It's more like, you meet the criteria, you know, and if you don't work, I'll go to the next one. We saw that behavior with Bundy at Lake Sam. There was a really interesting reconstruction. I think it was done by Kevin Sullivan, the Bundyologist, as I call him, who's written some really wonderful books on Bundy. I love his stuff. And at Lake Sam, it's been reconstructed from police reports that about every 15 minutes, he tried to stop a woman to help him with the sailboat on the car. And he wound up with Ott and Naslin. But every 15 minutes, he talked to someone near the bathroom where the women were going in and out of the restroom.
Right.
He even used his own name. He introduced himself as the theory, by the way, behind that is that he thought that somebody might recognize him and call out to him. And if they called out to him and called him Ted, and he had given a fake name to the woman he was talking to, she would know that he was concealing who he was and would run. So he just used his real name. So
Yeah.
interchangeableness, you see that a little bit, I think. So there are a lot of things I want to ask him, but I also want to ask him if he fantasized that one day they'd be studying him in criminology classes, and you know, if he was partially motivated by that desire to kind of become somebody in that way. I think the aim was psychosexual, but I think there was that secondary aim of mattering somehow, you know, being smarter than other people in some pathetic kind of way. But it's a great question. I'm feeling one day I'll get to talk to him.
All right,
well, I'll be listening.
Well, we appreciate your question.
That was a Frasier reference, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I'm listening.
I'm listening.
All right, Tina, time for you to go eat your food.
God.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. Before you go, did you hear about the cat that ate the ball of yarn? She had mittens.
That's really goofy, Josh.
I know. It's Dr. Gary's fault. Well, thank you, Tina, for calling.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
That was your fault, Dr. Gary. That was all your fault, actually. I take no blame in that whatsoever. Kelly, go ahead. You're on the air. Where are you calling from?
Serious dad joke. Not that I should talk, you know.
Hi, guys. I'm doing this with the link through StreamYard. You're not getting any feedback, are you?
Nope, sound good.
Okay. Hi, I'm calling from New York.
Right.
What's your name?
My name's Kelly. I'm a huge fan
Kelly.
of. Hi, I'm a huge fan of both of yours. Not to kind of like dampen the mood after the fun caller that was just on, but an amazing question, and I hope Dr. Brucato, you get to interview him. I can't think of anyone better. But I was just wondering if Josh, maybe from your perspective as a parent, and Dr. Brucato as
A human.
a human, sure. I'm struggling with I have a narcissist for a co-parent. And our child's only 6, and I'm trying to see the future, you know, kind of stuck with this person. And I create boundaries, and he finds ways to push them. Just he's a habitual line stepper. Um, and he did something, recently that I would say within the last year has kind of been the worst of my life. Like he actually, y- uh, I didn't think it was necessarily true where it's that the mind can only handle so much, but like it's true because that definitely happened to me last year. Um, and I've been trying to like put myself back together. Feel like I'm actually getting somewhere now. Um, but so my question is like, if you guys have any advice as to how to not let him slow me down or um, throw me backwards again. Josh, I'm not sure what your
Well,
co-parent.
your situation is similar to a lot of people's
Yeah.
in the world, and I've dealt with similar circumstances, and I know, it was funny because my grandfather told me he used to say this all the time. He would say, "Be careful um, who you have children with." He would always say that to me, and it's true. Obviously, once there's nothing to be done about it. Once you have children with the person that seems to be making your life hell and trying to slow down your progress. I think it's more so that when people try to better themselves, the person that they are sort of leaving in the background does not want that.
No,
And
100%.
yeah, and it's just they don't want to be left behind. They don't want you to turn out to be better than when you were with them. You don't have to be with people to still care about them and love them from a distance. However, some people make that extremely difficult.
Right.
The Now with having a child it's very tough. Obviously, when you have a child, especially for the first 18 years, but even after that, if you don't share the same values, if you don't share the same ideas for a good future or whatever it may be, um, but to really stifle the background noise, I personally, I would limit my communication with them as much as possible. um, I would I would not stop the momentum that you have based on something that this person or any person says to you or tries to bring you down or bring up mistakes from your past. That's another thing that people do quite often
Oh
is
yeah.
bring up mistakes from your past and try to throw them in your face and say, you did this, and people can move on and get better. Um, and like I said, I would strictly try to keep it about the child and what's in the best interest of the child. Also, the best interest for yourself and what's healthy for you. And like you said, set boundaries, because when you're co-parenting, that doesn't mean that they have an open invitation into your life.
Right. Yeah.
And
And I,
so,
I have him blocked on like, all social media, all that. I try to always have him call my father, or, someone else that can get in touch with me if it's something important about our child. But yeah, I guess that's what I need to work on is like not letting it get to me at all. Like I did an inpatient hospitalization a few months ago, just for like a week, just to figure out what the fuck was going on. And actually, Dr. Brucato, it was after he pulled like a Ted Bundy kind of situation on me with his fiance. Um, where he like got her to fall back in love with him and then like never talk to her again. Something like very similar to that. Um, and the first thing he said though when I did speak to him when I was leaving the hospital, just to let him know how I was to tell me like how our child said that, basically they hate me. And this is a 6-year-old, and I know that's not true. And that if I don't show up tomorrow, like they're just done with me. And then it's, but so how are you?
Mm, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they are destined to not want you to better yourself, but that's you don't know them anything. As a person, personally, for yourself, you don't know them anything at all. You're allowed to live your life and make progress the way that you want to do it. And I know that it's tough having children with somebody that you may not agree on life with. I mean, that is the one of the hardest parts of co-parenting is trying to have the same, because some, obviously, a kid goes to their parent or their dad's where they can do things that they can't do at their mom's. And then the mom has a problem with what's going on over at the dad's, like maybe, they can watch movies or, that mom wouldn't allow. And it's just a constant battle. And that is a battle that, you owe to your child. But as for, your relationship with somebody that you're not with, you don't owe them anything. And I know it's hard, but you do your best to not be dragged down by that kind of stuff.
yeah, I do. And I'm very agreeable with them. Like, we actually, luckily, we don't have too many issues in terms of like what she does there, what she does here. Like, we are somehow kind of on the same page with that,
Yeah,
which
that's
is,
good.
yeah, we want her to be happy. But yeah, I don't know if Dr. Brucato, and thank you, Josh.
Welcome.
Dr.
Well,
Brucato,
I can't respond to one word of this because it's a clinical question. It wouldn't be ethical of me to answer you. But all I could say is, this is something that I hope you're working out in private life, but it's just not appropriate for me to comment on it. I don't know the people involved. You're mentioning children involved. I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. But I hope you understand that it's very important. And perhaps the fact that I'm trying to demonstrate sensitivity and boundaries and all of that is heartening. That there are people who take those things so seriously. But it is very important that I be boundaried about that. So all I can say is my heart goes out to you that you're, and you can imagine how every fiber of me wants to help you, but I can't answer that publicly.
I completely understand. I guess my question was more just like in terms of dealing with the narcissist, like for.
You're talking about a specific person. I can't answer it, but Josh, I think, Josh, you spoke from personal experience, and
I've dealt with it. Yep.
Right, and I think that's the appropriate way to handle it. But I hope, from the heart, I hope you forgive me that.
No, I completely understand.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Well, appreciate it, Kelly, and I hope that everything, I hope that everything works out for you, and just keep working on yourself, and nothing will stop you if you're you want to put stuff in the rear view, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye. All right. And hey, look who's back.
Dean.
Dean, what do you?
Is that Dean? Oh, hi, Dean.
Yes, I had to switch my other account for some reason. I was getting feedback, and I missed all the yarn jokes and everything. It was making me so mad. Anyway, yes, I am a knitter crocheter, and I have a YouTube channel. I talked to you before.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What I was calling about tonight. I've been watching the Coberger like everybody else, and he seems to be kind of antisocial or socially awkward, those kinds of things. Do you think that he's going to enjoy it in prison, being alone?
You mean because he doesn't really like, because he doesn't because being around other people is something that's so
awkward to him.
Well, it's complicated because it depends on if you believe the depiction of him as suffering from something developmentally or whatever that makes being around other people painful and kind of difficult for him. But if you think of him as somebody who, in order to satisfy his ego, needs to be smarter than other people or condescend to them or whatever, then you need another person in the room.
Yeah, that's true.
why if he's in general population, that's who he's going to do it with. And believe me, it won't fly in that prison he's going to be in. Believe me.
What am I?
He'll
Oh,
be in a
I'm
lot
sorry,
of
I didn't mean to
trouble.
interrupt.
No, please, if you don't interrupt me, I'll never stop.
I was just going to say, you kind of touched on my other question. And my other question is, do you think he did this, by going to college, pursuing what, law and all that kind of thing, that he wanted to be a case study? That has been in my head since day one, like that, since they found out who he was. That's what he wanted. He wanted people to, he wanted to be a part of the class, a part of the teachings, a part of, look what this guy did. What do you think about this? I think he just wanted that, I don't know how to word it. Like he just wanted that recognition or, whatever, is to be a part of the crime community. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Sick, man.
Well, I think what you're picking up on is this sort of secondary aspect of, where I think he desires to dominate and control in different ways. One of which is the psychosexual stuff that I think was there. But the other is just to be kind of special and better than other offenders,
Right.
more interesting, to be whatever. And, I'm sure he was sitting there looking at his teacher and thinking one day she'll be talking about me, that kind of.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. That's what he was doing. Yeah.
Probably a little bit, but we don't know. We'll see. But the paradox, of course, is that if I ever go in and ask him, I'll be feeding.
I hope you do.
I'll be feeding right into it. That's the moral conundrum.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true because if he'd want to speak to anybody, it'd be you, and that would just stroke his feathers, for sure.
Dr. Gary.
Yeah.
What kind of needlework is always angry?
Oh Lord.
Cross stitch.
Oh my goodness. He's looking this stuff up, man.
Yeah,
I got looking this stuff up.
I got a whole list of them here. They're mostly puns, but I like them.
Well, I crochet and knit and do all that stuff, but I also do a lot of other things. I paint and weave baskets and, make jewelry. I do all kinds of things. So.
Well, I don't crochet, but I'm crotchety.
Now that is true.
That has been said about me a couple of times too, so I'll agree with that.
Crotchety crocheter, that's hilarious.
How do knitters travel?
Oh Lord, I don't know.
By cable car.
Oh jeez.
All right, I'm done.
I don't know. I heard the kitten one. That's the one I heard from earlier. The one about the kitten mittens. Yeah, that one I heard earlier. That was really cute. But yeah, no, I do a lot of different things. So it's not just, with yarn or whatever. But yeah, I'm into true crime and that's what I do while I'm crafting. So cool. I listen to you guys and you two are my favorite. I also love Chris. And so I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
If you have to pick one.
I was going to have to pick one. You don't want to know, Josh. Come on, man.
Later, D. It was nice talking to you.
It's good talking to you guys too. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye. D's awesome. All right, so
I was hoping my final years would be better than this,
They're not. It's just how it is, man. I was hoping my final. How is it your final years? You're like
just joking. I'm like
40s.
Like probably decades to go, but
yeah, hopefully. Danielle, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking my call.
How's the weather?
Oh, it's hot.
Yeah.
Too hot.
learned in research I did, which I have not yet published, I learned that North Carolina is the state in which a man is most likely to be castrated by his partner.
Oh my gosh.
They are the most castration cases.
Well, thank you for that tidbit.
Wow.
Yes, a little tidbit of information.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Gary.
Good.
right, exactly.
Good to know.
It's true. Statistics are
Look, I didn't think you were making it up. I just
no, we literally found that to be true.
Yeah.
That's the state
Wow.
you want to stay out of if you're, if you're concerned.
If you don't
about-
want to be castrated, yeah, that's the one you want to stay out of.
What can I tell you?
Well, I just enjoy the mountains, so
Yeah,
for
she's
me,
not
for
into
me that does it.
Well, you know what the state is where you're most likely to be killed by a serial killer?
New
What
York.
state?
California. And
No, bull crap. You're saying that because I live here.
No, that the serial killer database looked at the statistics. You're most likely to be a victim of serial killer in California and least likely in South Dakota. And the reason is it simply has to do with population.
I knew you were going to say that. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
True.
sense.
So which means that serial killers occur as a percentage of the general population.
Mm-hmm.
See? So
Right.
anyway, so how can we help you other than being a demented version of Alex Trebek?
So I have two questions for you regarding Brian Coberger. The first one is, and I have been wondering this since day one, since his case started, how was he able to have and accept having a female attorney, especially since we know that he has issues with women?
That's a great
And
question.
and then I mean, my only thought was that maybe it was because she's an authority figure and he just accepted it.
Do you want me
But-
to answer that or wait for the second question?
It doesn't matter. So that was my first question.
Well, let me do them in order. So
Okay.
So I think it's because there's a fragmentation in how he sees women. There are women that he views as garbage and women that he views as mom figures. And so, for example, it's interesting that if you look in the press, you'll see that in the description his professor gave, we don't see any hint of him condescending to her or being horrible to her like we see with other women, right? So think of, as I said earlier, think of the birthing hips comment that he makes to the woman he's on the date with. He's got this idea that there are some women that are sort of wholesome, that you would want to look up to and have a future with and make a family with and whatever. And then he's got the women that he thinks of as sexualized objects and that he has no moral, he thinks are immoral in his mind. A projection, of course, of his own wretched lack of moral compass, and the kind of toxic masculinity thing. And so I think that he viewed her as, the authoritative female type. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm dying to see his mother, to see if, his mother is a petite blonde or something like that. There seems to be a pattern there. But I also think that in a way he was condescending to her too, because he was sort of, I think, probably giving her BS stories and manipulating all the moves and everything.
Right.
So I think it has to do with the split in himself and the split in how he viewed women, and that's why, there are some women that he was able to put on a pedestal. So that's the first question. So what's the second question?
Right. And that could go along with, and would you say that would also be how he viewed Dr. Ramsland, maybe, possibly, because she was kind of an authority figure?
I don't know, but I mean, he certainly, to everybody's knowledge, didn't apply the negative stuff to her.
Right.
It may have something to do with that he feels differently about women that are young adults and women that are, more like close, let's say, to his mom's age or something like that. He may have had splits in that, but certainly we're going to have to find out. That's why I said earlier, I really want to know who's the prototype for this guy. What is being projected onto the victims? What characteristics does the female have to have. And, so, but it doesn't look from the trolling that he seems to have done that he was interested in anything other than young women who would be the age that he would be sexually attracted to.
Right.
So
Right.
if that's what it looks like. If he doesn't have sexual attraction for you and views you as a more mature, authoritative figure, it doesn't seem to have any. Right. So.
That makes sense. Okay. So, and my second question is regarding the sentencing that is coming up in a couple weeks. Do you think that there is any statement that a victim can make, whether it be from the parent or a friend or whoever it is? Do you think that there is any statement that someone could make that would cause a reaction from him, either there in that moment as he's hearing it, or that he would go back to his cell and it would cause him pause or cause him to think about it and say, that, that thought or that statement that person said, and that it would cause him to think about it or just
I mean,
affect him.
Are you talking about like remorse or regret? If that's
any
no.
Any, whether it be remorse or not, just that it would give him a reaction or cause him to think about it.
I think the reaction, if you look at his emotional life, there are some hints of having kind of dysphoria surrounding being a loser, but then dealing with it by being condescending and nasty. So it looks like the mode is like, I'm going to react to this by sort of being better than you. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to be angry at you and hold a grudge. And if that doesn't work, I'll kill you. Right? I'll take you by force. So that what I think is that that's the kind of person, like if in court they had said anything that made him feel out of control or condescended to him, he would have popped, which is why I think they needed to tell the jury that, this guy's got autism, because they were trying to justify in advance probably that he was going to do weird things in the courtroom, probably make nasty remarks, whatever. He's a control freak, right? So
interesting.
I think that the only thing that would get under the skin of somebody like that is to make him feel out of control. To say something that basically says, you failed. You got like the person Lisa said in the audience, you got nothing out of this. You couldn't even achieve this by force, right? You're like a complete, like literally nothing, and no one cares about your story. You're not interesting even now, that kind of thing. That would get under his skin a little bit. But other than that, no, I really don't think so. I think that thinking that he's sitting around, with puppy dog eyes, sad about this. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I'm sorry. I don't think so. I think he's basically a reptile.
Right. I mean, there's a possibility that someone might say that in court,
Gonna be
that
interesting.
that he's a nothing, that he didn't win, he lost, and I was just curious to think, what would his reaction be?
Well, if you really wanted to get under his skin, I mean, I think you might want to say something to him like, you're a loser because nobody loves you, and you had at least your family supported you, and now even they know what you are. No, now you got nothing. And if you don't love anything, then you basically wind up on the ash heap, and you're gone. You're dust. And he doesn't even have, the sensitivity to pretend he feels sorry, even to try to get some leniency. Nothing. It's absolutely no. It's just callous. So I think you can say that, but unfortunately, I don't know how you're supposed to if you're trying to get into the heart of a person who simply doesn't, it's like they were made like the Tin Man without one. I don't know, what's going to happen. Now, I think those statements are more for the family. I think that I think that the most important thing is that the family convey that these people, these victims mattered, that they had names, that people loved them, and that their work and their love will continue even without them being here. But other than that, I mean, the tragedy of this whole thing is like no one's ever going to achieve closure. Even the way that this wound up happening, it didn't allow the families that kind of exposure therapy that you need, where like just going to the trial over weeks or months allows you to accept the reality that your loved one is gone, and that you're not going to be able to run around talking to the press or or being upset or whatever, because then it all calms down. There's no new developments, and you're just sitting in the house looking at that empty bed and that empty chair and the empty spot on the couch and and you just kind of lose it, and I think that's the whole problem, is that there's no pacing now.
Right.
Like he's, we made a deal. Have a nice day.
Right.
So they're going to be devastated.
Right.
And so I think it's more for the families to get up and express what they feel, but they have to not labor under any kind of illusion that he cares about anything they're saying.
Right.
One bit. And as far as he's concerned, if he had not been caught, he would have just kept doing this.
Right. I wish the judge would also address him. That's what I'm hoping too, but I don't know if Judge Hippler will do that. And not that it would make any difference to him, but it would be nice to hear something from the judge to speak about the horrific,
Don't they
crimes
usually
that he
only do that,
committed.
after a trial, though?
They do, but I mean, usually at sentencing, sometimes the judge will speak and give their own, thoughts. So
Well,
I'm always,
I may be wrong, but I'm typically after a trial is, where they've heard all the evidence and everything. And then they come back for sentencing, like with Murdoch and I don't know, Nathaniel Rowland. It was actually the same judge that spoke out on Alex Murdoch, and he did that. He does it very, very well. But I don't know. I don't know if judges do that when people take plea deals. I just know, Dr. Gary.
I mean, I don't think there's a cookie cutter kind of way to do it. Sometimes they don't even say anything. I would
like it. I mean,
right.
I just think that giving this guy as little oxygen as possible seems to be because the thing is, this is what we have to wrap our head around. We're talking about a situation where a person has a fantasy, and that fantasy turns the entire female sex into a gigantic lump of people as if they're completely interchangeable. And he thinks that because some women in that group don't think he's the most fabulous creature that ever lived, he is entitled to do things to any of them that he decides to just pluck out of the world, right? And the idea is what it is he felt entitled to do, I imagine, is far worse than what even happened. Right. There probably was a sexual assault component to it. God knows what else would have been played out, and it all got interrupted. But I think what you really want to get into your mind is the idea that he feels so entitled to do that he could just take a stranger, somebody's daughter or granddaughter or great-granddaughter or friend or classmate or whatever, who was doing nothing but sleeping in her bed. Right, so you have to picture anybody your daughter, your friend, whatever, retires for the night. Right, she's gone out, she's had some fun, whatever. She retires for the night. You know what we all do? You put your phone on the charger. You scrub your face. You take a shower. Whatever you do, right? You have your ritual. You go to sleep for the night. You get under the covers. Whatever. Never even occurs to you that some non-entity that's been watching you for months has made his mind up that you're never waking up again.
It's just horrible.
That's what you got to understand, like what you're dealing with here. And if you grasp that, and then you think you're going to go in there and say something that's going to, like, wangle his conscience or something. I mean, give me a break. I mean, no. But I think that what you could do is reaffirm the idea that he needed to do that in his mind in the first place, because he's basically a pathetic creature that couldn't have anything. And he didn't get it. Even people that were asleep, he couldn't do it. That's how pathetic he is. So that's very important. And unfortunately for him, we all know that in a prison situation, even if for the most part he's isolated, he's at risk of having things happen to him, where he is taken out of control and is potentially assaulted and everything else. We don't have enough books on the sexual assault, for example, of men who are in prison. But don't think it doesn't happen.
Right.
So, I mean, these are things that people are talking about, oh, he might get hit or killed or whatever. I actually think he's at high risk of being pinned down and assaulted.
Sure.
Right. So, that's what you want to understand. Like, and this is how stupid his plan and his envisioning how to go into the future with this, how pathetic it was that he didn't think he could ever get caught, and this is what was going to happen. Right. So there's that too, right? Just a complete loser.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, I just want to really put that out there, because there are still people that support this guy. I get hate mail, from people that tell me that I've done too much to make him look bad. I mean,
it's your fault.
I mean, are you joking? I don't think I've done enough.
Yeah.
So I really want to get that out there, and I really want to put the emphasis back on the victims. We have people in our audience who have experienced sexual assault.
Yeah.
And when, this stuff happens, they watch court cases, and if the person sort of gets away with it, or like with the P. Diddy thing, right? They look at it and it makes them feel that empowered men have done something, and then they get away with it. Right. And so, and then it re-traumatizes. Right. So there's that piece too. Yeah. Oh,
I was going to say, we got more calls.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry to cut it off. I appreciate, please call back in when we do another one. We appreciate you.
I will. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good night, both of you.
Take care. Sure. Hey, Dr. Gary, I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but the next two callers, I think, are males.
I don't think we've ever had one.
I think we've had one or two.
Nah, not that I ever saw.
Greg, are you there?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, Greg, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Arkansas.
All right. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Thank you for waiting.
I'm sorry. What was that?
I said, thank you for waiting.
Oh, yes, no problem. So I have a question which is a little bit unrelated to Coberger and Bundy and all that. And my question is more of a kind of a philosophical about murderers, specifically to do with political violence or religious violence. So I know that there's people who murder someone for a reason, like, I don't know, there's a political assassination because of, maybe Vladimir Putin has ordered somebody to be killed or whatever, right? So somebody carries out a murder. And that's a very understandable kind of power move to take out somebody who is a threat. And then there's kind of a spectrum of things where you have people like maybe Ted Kaczynski, who is sending, who has a manifesto, clearly motivated politically, but the people he's targeting are like mail workers and just random civilians. And then you have John Hinckley, right, who has shot at Ronald Reagan, but his motivation was to try to impress Jodie Foster, right? And like one of the more challenging ones, I think, for people lately is Luigi Mangione, of course, who had a clear motive. He targeted, obviously, one person, didn't fire on any bystanders. But this seems like to be really polarizing for people because of the split between, you know, murdering anyone is wrong versus, well, this seems like about as understandable, like a, you know, a clear thought process and line from point A to point B. I'm wondering.
Hold on a minute. Forgive me.
Yes.
You actually believe that he killed that CEO, or it's accused of, that is, because he thought he was doing something that was, you know, helping the world or something? You don't think the real motivation was infamy or to get even with, you know, some Gad figure or some other psychological? Like, you actually believe that story?
I mean, I can only base it off of what, you know, the note that they found said and that sort of thing, right? So,
because I believe him about as far as I could throw.
Okay, but I guess my question is, and you know, and in religious cases, there are people who are commit some kind of martyrdom act where they go. You're right. So my question for you is, how do you, like, I guess, how do you draw the line between what you consider maybe reasonable or understandable political violence, religious violence, versus what you would start to put into the bucket of that person is, you know, just out of their gourd or whatever, like, and it, you know, is there a point at which you might look at somebody and go, yeah, you know, like the people who fought in the Revolutionary War, for example, are soldiers, right, carrying out violence, politically motivated violence every day, but we don't say that those people are, you know, nuts. So I guess my question is just, you know, to get your thoughts on what you think about that, about the idea of like a, I guess, an understandable murder or violence or that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, you're getting into, you know, Augustinian philosophy about justified war, right?
Sure.
The reality is that there are basically two kinds of murder. There's personal cause murder and group enterprise murder. And in group enterprise murder, which, you know, can be personal cause, like the hi-fi murders where a couple of guys get together and commit a mass murder, you get that type, but you also get the type where the person sees themselves as part of an army or a syndicate. That's not personal cause murder. So, for example, if a mafioso kills somebody, they're doing it because they're part of a group of people,
right? They're gang ordered,
or a terrorist that, in the name of Al Qaeda or something, kills people. So those people think of the world as divided up into a kind of armies, and they're doing it for that reason. Then what you get is private citizens that masquerade as identifying with a group cause, but 9 out of 10 times they don't really believe in that. They're just identifying with that as a kind of a nobilization, a noble cause, to make it look like they did it for any reason other than their own pathetic needs. A good example of that, for those who are not on the East Coast, like if you're out in California, for example, where Josh is, it's still the 13th. So you have the anniversary of the Crook shooting of Trump. Now, that masquerades, you know, in the public as some kind of political thing. You know, he did it because he wanted to stop somebody from being president. But the reality is that he was researching all kinds of people.
Yeah,
he was researching Fani Willis and Biden and Merrick Garland and everybody else all over the aisle.
So just the most famous guy in his neighborhood.
The real motivation is I'm going to kill a famous person.
Right, exactly.
Right, and so that masquerades as some kind of group cause, you know, politically motivated thing, but it was just a selfish act to try to aggrandize oneself after years of feeling kind of pathetic and invisible. So basically, when it comes to people who commit political violence, you have 4 basic subtypes, right? Whether you believe that Mangione, or, you know, as an example, was authentically committing that kind of violence is up to you to decide. I don't believe that, but you can if you want to. So the 4 categories are, number 1, the ideologically driven, right? So this is the person who lays himself down or herself down like a martyr, thinking that by eliminating a person or a group of people, they're serving some greater cause, right? So that's the person who says, I'm going to go in and I'm going to shoot or kill this political person who's doing evil, and I'm going to save the world, and I expect that I'm going to be killed.
Would this be like an abortion clinic shooting or something, that kind of thing?
Right. Those people, and there tend to be in those people little whiffs psychotic-like process. They're not psychotic, but they tend to have little whiffs of grandiosity and paranoia and all that. I think you saw a little of that in the preacher who shot the couples recently. Do you remember that? The Christian preacher who like dressed up as a cop and shot two different couples.
Oh yeah, this sounds familiar. Yeah.
So you get that type. Then you get the type who is basically just a psychopath who enjoys stirring up anarchy, right? So I'm going to commit this kind of act just like the Joker in Batman or something. Like I do it just for the sake of chaos. Then you get the type who is completely psychotic, right? So they have voices or control override delusions that are total and complete, right? So that's where I talked earlier about Richard Lawrence, who tried to kill Andrew Jackson because he thought that he was Richard III, who died in 1485, tried to kill Jackson in 1835, right? They institutionalized him. He was acquitted, right? You get that type. That's where I think the Hinckley story comes in, yes, right? That kind of person who just has a totally delusional system.
Right.
And then the fourth kind, which I think is the most common, is the person who is ultimately looking for infamy and attention. Think, for example, of as I said earlier, because I think you might not have seen the earlier part of the show. I mentioned Versace, the designer who was killed by Andrew Cunanan. Well, he only killed Andrew Cunanan because he couldn't get to the other targets that he had in mind: Madonna, Tom Cruise, and other people. So the idea is, I have to kill a really big fish to go down in history as being linked in the encyclopedia to that killer, right? So as I was saying earlier, it's the idea that you parasitically are going to take that person's fame because you've killed them, and now you look up that person and your name is tied to them forever, right? And I think that's what, for example, Crooks was doing. Now, Luigi Mangione, whatever you want to say about him, the fact of the matter is he's got his attention, he's got his infamy. They're making a Broadway show about him, for God's sake, right? And I think that's what you want to understand is that whatever his motivation was, it is strikingly suspicious how much narcissistic patting on the head he's getting as a result. And so I question the political motivation. Now, I think as a general statement, outside of like justified war, I don't think there's any situation in which a person is justified to take a weapon and go out and kill somebody because they don't agree with them. This is becoming an unfortunately attractive idea in the general population because unfortunately the powers that be have not done a very good job of cooling down the temperatures about dividing us all up like the Lord of the Flies, into their evil and we're good kind of thing. And as a consequence, you have a lot of people who are feeling powerless and who are becoming attracted to this kind of thing. But the reality is this is not some kind of civil war. There's no justification for that. And it would be outrageous to suggest that there's any justification for a person to do that. So, but I think it's a really interesting question. What I'm getting at, I hope in my answer I'm getting at is the idea that just because somebody says that they're motivated by trying to do something larger than themselves, don't believe that. You have to look at the person's behavior and the wider context, and you'll realize that a lot of times that's a BS reason. I hate to say it, but I think a lot of war generally is an overcompensation for personal crap going on with the people who commit war. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you almost want to say like, I'm sorry, Daddy didn't love you, but I mean, get your finger off the button, that kind of thing. But I think a lot of it is motivated by psychological stuff in people, and I think that's much more interesting than thinking about people who supposedly have these big causes and care about people so much. If they cared about people so much, they wouldn't kill anybody.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do think it's interesting to think about people who are willing to die for a cause and a comparison between that and people who are willing to kill for a cause.
Right. That's one of the groups. Yeah. But they're rare. and that's a rare type, but it does exist. And the person, as I said, they tend to have a quasi-psychotic, grandiose idea that God or something else is calling them to do it.
Uh-huh.
And, but those are interesting characters. A really hard question, actually, is where do you put John Wilkes Booth?
That's
Some
what I was
people
gonna
think,
ask.
yeah, I smelled it. Some people think that John Wilkes Booth really believed that he had a cause, and but remember, John Wilkes Booth was playing out the story of the assassination of Julius Caesar, a role he knew very well as an actor. His father made that, and his brother made that role famous, right? Where you have the assassination of this leader by this kind of Brutus-like kind of figure. And he was a kind of a heartthrob, like a narcissistically validated at all times heartthrob, who kind of wanted to go out in a blaze. And I think he really falls into the fourth category, but he masqueraded as being in the first category. And that's the key. Watch out for people who masquerade as having a cause.
Yeah. Well, Greg, thank you so much. That was a great question, Dr. Gary. Great answer. I hope that I hope you call back in, Greg. It's nice to know that there's some guys out there listening.
All right, then.
All right. Thank you so much. That's a great question. Okay. So Dustin, you there, Dustin? Let me see.
Dust in the wind.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. We'll go. All right, we're coming to Catherine next. Catherine, go ahead. You're on. Thank you for waiting. Where are you calling from, Catherine?
I'm calling from Greenville, Tennessee.
Oh, I smell a question about Summer Wells.
Absolutely. I live about 40 miles from Ben Hill, but I don't know. Your other callers got me thinking about other things.
Yeah.
The one lady with the narcissism, I have that in my life, and that's not an easy thing to deal with. And you have to, I just want to tell her, you have to make sure that you don't blame yourself. Make sure you're looking at the other person as, what they really are, and realize it and realize what you are, because you take a lot of abuse from people. And I don't know with Summer. And then the other question was how a victim watches the person who did what they did to them gets free. And that applies to me. My disability is PTSD, even though it happened in the late 80s. And it was a long time ago. So
PTSD doesn't know time.
Well, that was one of my questions. Sometimes I feel like, I relive it so many times, along with some other things that happened, or anything that's out of my control is what causes the trouble. But no, it happened a long time ago, and he got free, and I got arrested, and so did the police officer. It's a long story, but he got free, and he was an illegal. And I was working at a convenience store in the middle of the night. In fact, it was New Year's Eve, and he came in and he acted like he couldn't work the microwave. And I came around the counter, and he took me at knife point, robbed the store, and ripped the phone out of the wall. And that's when I got very terrified. But I just kept begging him, don't hurt me, don't kill me. The whole time, that was like my mantra. And he took me out of the store and down the road, and I escaped him when he tried to kiss me, and I went to another store. But anyways, very long story short, as much as short as I can get it, I went home and
take all the time you need to tell your story. Nobody's rushing you.
Oh, thank you. It's a long story, but after the robbery, I went home, and I didn't have a telephone. And the store manager's husband came to my house, and he said they picked somebody up, and they want you to look at him. And that was about 3 hours after it happened. I lived alone. I was very shook up. My brother lived there on weekends. He was a trucker, and he was sound asleep. And I had a beer. And by the time I got back to the station, and our police station in Davenport, Florida, it was tiny, the size of a kitchen or something, a big kitchen nowadays. And the robbery was horrible, by the way. The cop came over. I ran to another convenience store. This guy took me down the road, and I went in the other convenience store and just kept screaming until I was like blacking out. And I came out. It's a detail you should hear. I came out of that store, was waiting for the cop out front, and there was a prostitute there. And our little town didn't have a lot. She was probably the only prostitute. And I said, "Do you have a cigarette?" I was really freaking out. And she broke off her cigarette and gave me some of it. And I told her what happened. Well, she came back to the police station later and told the cop that there was a guy who, was bragging that he robbed the store and he bought crack. And that's how the cop picked this guy up. He went down to the little crack area and got the guy. And then they came and got me. And when they told me to walk down the hall to the guy and not to say anything. It was just such a small thing. There's like 2 rooms, like the size of a trailer. And I went down there and looked at him. I was like, "That's not him." And I said it out loud. And I said it, he had his head down and he had a different shirt on. I really didn't recognize him. I went back to the police station the next day. Oh, by the way, at the police station when that happened, it was such a small police force and they're wonderful. There was like 5 of them and the chief. They seen me go in there. But anyway, next day I came from my other job and stopped at the police station because I lived alone, didn't have a phone. I was scared. The guy knew my car because I was only on the job for 2 days, and the illegal came in that store both days. He knew me, knew my car, and I only lived about 6 blocks from where I got robbed. I stopped in the police station the next night, talked to the same cop who was my hero because he calmed me down, and he left me in the car while he went and ran through the store when he brought me back to the store where I was robbed. And he showed me a photo lineup and a serrated knife and the money that he picked off of the guy, which there was like a whole roll of dimes I had just opened, and the guy emptied the cash register. So I was like, that looks like it's right, but the steak knife, I was like, he put the knife to my throat after when I turned my back on him from the microwave, and had me go through, the register and everything with the knife to my throat the whole time, and then outside with the knife to my throat. So when I looked at the pictures, I said, "That's him," right away. I said, "That's the guy." And the cop said, he said, and the money looks right. And the cop said, "Well, that's the guy you were in here last night," and said it wasn't him. So that guy, the illegal, had a great lawyer who was like a crusader for rights for, Spanish people. And she got him off on the fact that I said, "That's not him," and he heard me. And they arrested the police officer and me because he was driving me to the depositions. I was single and I had an old car. This cop was taking me to the depositions in Bartow, Florida, and he told me don't say anything about identifying him or they're going to let him go right away. And because in the deposition I said, I don't remember, which I got charged with perjury and he got arrested. They dragged me through court for like 2 months or 2 years. I'm sorry, 2 years. But he was back on the force within a year. And now he's, to this day, he's in the cops that bust cops. I don't know what you call it. I forgot.
Internal affairs.
Yes. And I'm way far away from that, in Florida now. So it's been 20 years and, it's been a long time. And I don't use that as a crutch because I was robbed again 2 years later at gunpoint. I was working in a 1-hour photo. That's what I did. And for many years in Kissimmee, Florida, and he just walked in, and I walked to the counter, and he put a gun to my stomach, and he said, "This is a robbery, ma'am," and he was a little short Spanish guy. And so when he went out the door, I crawled to the back of the store, and I took a while till, I think he stole the camera too. I'm not sure. No, it was just the money. And then when I came from the back of the store, I came out and I saw him getting in a car across the street to 7-Eleven. I was like on the phone with 911 and freaking out, and they never caught him.
How
So
has this affected your worldview, daily life?
before that happened, I was in those two robberies. I was in my middle to late 20s, and I lived alone, but I worked hard, to keep a place for my pets. I was one of those people. I made that important. I lived very poor, but I was brave.
So,
No, I'm not going to say brazen. I'm going to say that I was brave. I had not much fear. I was a strong, independent person, and I feel like I could have went pretty far if that hadn't happened, because I didn't dwell on it. I did not. But I started having panic attacks, like I was having a heart attack, and horrible, horrible dreams. And I still do, but anxiety causes those dreams more than anything, and it causes the depression. It's all about anxiety. I'm not on any medicine for it right now, because there's new laws. I was on medicine for 26 years, for tranquilizer, and now they've got a new law here, and I had to make a decision for one medicine or another, and I was like, so now I'm in a kind of a state.
Yeah.
But it affected me bad.
Well, it's very sad to see how, when you talk about it, it's as fresh as the day it happened. Of course, that's the nature of trauma, and the way you want to think about it is, it's sort of like if you went outside and you looked up at the sky and you saw the stars and the constellations and so forth. You would believe that those stars are there, but the truth is that that's really the light from stars from millions of years ago, and some of those stars aren't even there anymore. It just took too long for the light to get to the Earth. Well, it's sort of like that. In other words, you're looking at something that happened a really long time ago, and it feels like it's here with you now, but it isn't. It's just the remnant of something that's long gone. Do you understand? And it feels alive, as as if it's burning up in the sky still, but it's dead. It blew up a long time ago. And
I love it.
it's the struggle. You understand? It's that it feels like it's alive and happening now, but it was a long time ago. And
Gone.
you have to make meaning out of it, because if you don't fight against it, you're giving more time to something that already robbed you.
Right. And the dreams are horrible, and I don't
They are.
provoke them in any way.
The dreams are horrible, you said?
Oh God, I've had over the years. It's unbelievable, and I don't. There's nothing I do or think of before I go to sleep or anything. It just happens. It happens mostly when I have anxiety about something else. But what you were saying is good. I had a therapist who told me something. Um, it's like you're sitting in a room and a tiger comes in, and all of a sudden you're sweating and your heart's racing and all of that, and the tiger's not real. So that's what happens with panic attacks. It's like seeing a tiger, and all of a sudden you're having all these physical things happen to you, and you don't understand it. But
that's what happens, is that the brain generalizes. I mean, I know people who went to war in, let's say, Vietnam or Gulf for something, and they heard bombs drop, and now they jump every time they hear someone pop a balloon at a birthday party or hear a car back up. Your brain generalizes, and the whole idea is that if your brain is sort of primed to have an anxious reaction, anything that even remotely reminds you, even a person who looks like the person who assaults you.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! Yeah, when I'm in a store, yeah.
Right, to set it off. And so that's what I mean when I say you want to remember that what you're seeing are remnants from a star from a long time ago.
Right.
And but no one can tell you, that you have to do it in this amount of time, or here's how you do it. That this is first of all, the literature says that if you're traumatized by something that is natural, like an earthquake,
right,
it's a lot easier to get over it because those things are rare. It's not going to be reinforced. But if you're traumatized by a person, first of all, every person around you is a person and feels loosely related to the attacker, because they could come up to you and suddenly attack you, right? And then there's the idea that you had a robbery later. See?
Right.
So
a second robbery. And I do, when PTSD with veterans, I feel like, hey, that's a whole different thing. And I can't compare myself. It's hard to say, I don't know. I felt my outlook, your first question was like, my outlook was pretty good before that happened. And after it happened, I was looking under the car before I got it in, after work, and I worked at night. So, I mean, when I got home, I was, it did that kind of thing, but I did not over drama. I'm just not a drama queen. So it happened to me while I was sleeping. It happened to me when I was riding down the road, and the panic attacks and then the nightmares and stuff. It wasn't something I asked for or was a drama queen and said, oh, poor me, because there was nobody to listen to poor me, number one. I did try to get help after that, but in Florida it was pretty, I almost got laughed at, I think. But since I've been here in Tennessee, I got a lot of help, and great people have helped me.
Well, you sound very grounded, and you sound, I know, PTSD is a terrible thing, and I live with stuff that I wish that I could forget. There's so many things that I wish that I could, and I just can't.
But you've channeled it into something, Josh.
I have, but there. Look, man, there are dark moments. There are lonely moments. I mean, that. Yes, I'm happy that I'm able to do that, but it's sort of, I guess it's just kind of my cross, to bear, and it fits me, I guess, now. Like you said.
You remember I said that.
I do remember.
I felt like when I started getting therapy and really talking about it, each time I talked about it, it was like a release of balloon air, That's how I felt. So when you talk about what's happened to you, I completely understand it. It's not like, each time, even when I first started talking about it, I was laughing a little, and I was like, what? What's wrong with me? It was just such a good release to tell somebody the details of it, like I did with you all tonight. Now I'm good. I'll be good for a while with that.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
In your lifetime, how many people do you think you've met? I mean, if you added up all the classmates you ever had, and all the teachers, and all the friends, and all the people you've known that were neighbors, and etc. If you had to give an estimate, how many people do you think you've known?
Well, maybe 10,000.
Right. And if out of those 10,000,
I don't know.
Right, and if out of those 10,000, only one or two of them have done horrendous things to you, it's interesting how the brain only remembers those two.
That's so true. The narcissists.
But
because
right, but you're talking about 9,998 potentially good people. And what I hope happens to you is, I mean, for example, a lot of times people come to therapy who've been offended offended against, and I will notice that just being there every week, being a stable object to the person, is already healing.
Yeah.
It reminds them that there are some people in the world that don't mean them any harm, who are good, kind. So that's what I want you to try to hone in on, is the idea that, like in this group tonight, and what the people are saying in the audience and so forth, some people really do care about other people. And listen, I've seen the darkest things in the world, believe me, and it's very easy to get cynical, but you have to remember that the brain, because of its heuristic way of operating, will just remember the awful.
Yeah.
But,
and then I beat myself up for being negative.
But that's part of the whole process.
Part of the process. But you have to hone in on the and you can't. The other thing is, you can't get foolish and think there aren't people who you can't trust. But the problem is that it kind of fools you into thinking that everybody's, hiding the gun or pulling on you. Or it's very important.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
It did change my outlook in that way. Now, I mean,
you're not afraid all the time. You're afraid all the time.
Right. Trust issues, I just can't. I don't think there's anybody that I'll trust 100%, except for my father, maybe. My mother, who passed away like 4 years ago, 5. But those were the only people.
That's the hardest thing in the world, isn't it? I was just talking to somebody who lost their mother, very themselves, a very special person, and Josh, of course, knows a thing or two about that.
Sure do.
I had an issue. Now, it wasn't with Spanish people really, but it was Spanish men. If I went into a store, and in Florida at that time when I was there was a lot of Spanish people. But oh my God, if I was in a store aisle with just one Mexican man, I had that tiger come in the room, I would just start sweating and getting nauseous and dizzy. I get that. But what happened is I wound up having a job with a Spanish family, a man and a woman, and wound up just adoring them. They're Puerto Rican, and I had no prejudice against.
No, absolutely. It's the same thing. Like, I have problems with, especially growing up. I never trusted anybody's dad, when I was a kid. I mean, it was like, well, I know what dads can do, that wasn't fair, but that was just how my mind was programmed at the time. And I got over that eventually, but I completely understand what you're saying. And Catherine, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you call back in again.
I have talked to you and Chris once before. It was like a long time ago when you first started with Collins. Yeah. And I talked about Summer Wells, but she went off the map today anyway. But no, thank you so much. It really was a help to me, Dr. Brucato. And
well, look, I will say, just before you hang up, I'll say to you that the truth is that the world desperately needs people who are helpers and who are the kind of people that in the final analysis will give you the shirt off their back and be kind and understand whatever. Those kind of people are saving people without knowing.
Right.
And I would say is that whenever you have an opportunity, instead of being afraid and you have every right to, but try to remember every day that you have a very special place in the world, because you've seen darkness, you've looked it in the eyes, and you can be there for somebody who's going through it. And I think that in doing that, what you do is you disprove the very darkness that came into your life. You sort of say the buck stops with me, and you show that there's still goodness in the world. And the same way that dark people robbed you of the ability to believe that people are good, you go out and you be good so that you teach other people that there are good people in the world. The same way that darkness reminds you, you don't know who's coming in front of you. A person could be coming in front of you that desperately needs to see that there are still people in the world that are loving. And by being kind to them, you may keep that person from suicide, from violence, from being nasty, from needing to go home and, kick the dog, in this kind of displacement thing. So I just really want to emphasize that you just keep going out and be part of the good, because remember, the point of life is you have to imagine this big fire, and every one of us has like a little torch that we've taken a little of that light, and our job is to get across life without it going out.
Right.
That's how you think about it, right? That little flicker of God, yes. To just get across life without all the wind blowing it out. That's how you see it. And just whatever it takes, and every once in a while, you notice somebody else is just flickering in the wind, and you say, take some of mine.
You're right.
You see?
That's very good advice. Yeah.
Right. That's how I like to think about it. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. Yeah.
Some people will burn you with theirs. But
yes, they will.
Oh, yeah.
Keep on marching on. It's still your task to get that to the other side.
Right. Thank you, Catherine. We appreciate your call.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate you very much.
You're welcome. I have no idea how I'm discoherent at 1:47 in the morning, but we have another call.
We got two more, and
my God, it's becoming like one of those Morton Downey Jr., middle of the night, kind
of. Vicky, where are you calling from?
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, awesome. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I'm calling from San Diego, California. The dangerous population here.
Shout out to the pod.
Right. So I wanted to thread a needle. See what I did there with the yarn? I wanted to ask a couple questions real quick. My second question is going to be about Coberger's mom. But the first question I had was, I was kind of frustrated. I love your guys' show and the interview room. There's some other podcasts. I've been really following the Coberger thing all along. There's some other podcasts that make so many speculations, and some of them are downright opposite of evidence we all know well. And especially Dr. Brucato and you would know, Josh. One of the things I found odd the other night, I was listening to one.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't want to know, so don't name.
No, I'm not gonna. No, I won't. No names. No names. I agree. Okay, so I heard this wild speculation with a maybe formerly FBI profiler, and they were talking about the fact that there was some reporting or evidence that Ethan was practically living there in Xana's room. And so that if a person had been profiling the case or the residents rather, they may very well have known he was there often enough, like overnight enough, that he was almost always there. I don't know if that's in any way true or if there's really evidence to support that. But one of the questions I had for Dr. Brucato was, it seemed like if he was really casing the neighborhood and circling around, and there's evidence on that video that young lady made on Asget, that he went in right when the lights went out, which would indicate that he knew, with all those cars in the driveway, the lights just finally were going out, that there was definitely more there than just the roommates. And the other part of this question is that he pled guilty to planning to kill those 4 victims. And so, was he maybe planning, Dr. Brucato, to take all of the roommates' lives, all of them, but he just got tired? Or secondarily, if he would go in right after all that activity and the YouTube driver, could we argue that maybe he completely didn't care what he was going to run into as it relates to that plan of just targeting perhaps Maddie?
I think that you have to remember that the prosecutor stood up at the time of the plea deal and said that he only intended to kill one person, which is, I'm sure, based upon what was told to them. I think that you have to just stick to the facts here. I mean, what's going to happen is you're going to get every kind of imaginable speculation, but the reality is that what you have is a person who on his phone is looking at a bunch of women and pornography that involves brutalizing women who are incapable of fighting back, who look dead or are sleeping, whatever. There's no male in there that gets assaulted or anything like that. What I think happened is, if I had to guess, is that this guy was surveying in some way what was going on in that house. And when he made his mind up that he was going in, he probably had to shut that down. And as a consequence, he didn't know that Haley was in there in that room, that the dog was there, that the two, that Zaina and Ethan were going to be there, or certainly not awake. And so what I think is his intel failed him in some way. And and now I know there's people in the audience who say that Thompson is minimizing whatever. I'm sorry, I don't agree. I think he went in there like a typical offender to target one person and had bad intel. Now, the part that I am interested in is it is true that there would have been cars outside, so he might have thought to himself, everybody's gone to bed, the lights are out, like you say. But I'm telling you, if he's anything like the typical offender, because those kind of people don't intend to commit mass murders. They commit mass murders because things get out of control. That type of person goes in there and has a particular target, and they have a fantasy to play out. It doesn't work out, so they just start thrashing out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, I got to get out of here. I came in here, made my mind up I was going to do something, and now it's on. And then it just all goes to hell. And and he gets exhausted and he leaves two alive, and gets out of there. And and I don't think you have to get into all this much more complicated stuff. What you're talking about is a guy who's probably an angry, pathetic pervert who decided he was going to go in there and enact a fantasy, and he was too stupid to do it correctly. I mean, it's as simple as that. Everything else is this fantasy to turn this into some sort of crime drama, CSI crime drama, like it's more complicated than that, and it isn't. There isn't that much new under the sun when it comes to crime. See, so
well, Dr. Gary, the
Keys victim is an interesting comparison.
Just the other day, I think it was yesterday, and I believe it was Idaho. A man was charged with quadruple murder. He went to, I think it was 3 separate houses, or 2, maybe 2. And it's not going to get that much play because they were older folks, poor, and, there's no motive or anything yet, but the man's been arrested. They have him on camera. So allegedly he has killed 4 people. And like you said, there's not much, I mean, that's a quadruple homicide, allegedly. And it's a really weird story and more to come out. But yeah, you're right. There isn't much new under the sun, and not everything is this like grand conspiracy. And so I get that. And I also
his ego makes us all think he's interesting. His ego is all about pulling us into playing that out. When you're dealing with a narcissistic person, expect the people around them to be torn up like Lord of the Flies killing each other. That's what people like that want. They want the whole world divided up into those loyal to them and those who don't believe a word they say, fighting. Right? So Josh, what you're picking up on is that all this entire conversation, Jennifer, that's not true. I appreciate the questions. Someone in the chat said they think they're bothering me. They're not. But so I think what we're picking up on is that there's something in his personality that needs us all to think he's special.
Yeah, that's that.
I don't think he's special. I think he's sort of pathetic.
I think that
I agree. It's almost like he's just this major wannabe. The whole thing to me is it's like he's dressing up to be Bundy. And on the Bundy note, my other question about Mom, I'm fascinated when we see all of these, we hear all these different crimes over the years, particularly serial killers and mommy issues. And I'm fascinated by how much I've tried to dive into everything I've seen. And there's just almost a deafening silence as it relates to Coberger's mom and their relationship potentially. We've heard a lot about Dad, or Dad seeming more weak, or Coberger even indicating that he had malice toward him and didn't even know why. But I'm dying to know what Dr. Brucato knows about Mom. We know she wrote that, I don't know if it was an op-ed, but she wrote about Bundy and the chasing of the hearse. And almost in an advocate kind of standpoint for Bundy, but I'm fascinated how absent there's been any discussions of, we know a lot about his sisters and all these different things, but we don't hear anything about Mrs. Coberger.
Well, I mean, I think that the jury is out on where his ideas about women come from. And given the split that seems to be present in his personality, I would expect that there's a division in his mind about women, right? That there's two different types, right? There's, like I keep saying, there's going to be the type that you have on a pedestal and the type that you degrade. And, you know, that now I personally think that when mothers go bad, they're an extremely interesting archetype. I'm fascinated by very evil mothers. I think it's a very interesting kind of character. I mean, that's like the Hitchcock in me. I'm fascinated by the idea of a person you don't expect to do something horrendous is the one who does it. I'm really interested in that kind of character because, you know, if you've had a nasty father, that's one thing, but a nasty mother really gets right to that archetype of the loving figure, the kind figure. You know, you don't really expect them.
Tony Soprano.
Yeah, right. She's so I'm very interested in that kind of figure. And you know, I by the way, just as a little side note, I always say, remember that Rose Nyland on The Golden Girls and Norman Bates had the same mother. The actress who played Betty White's mother on The Golden Girls was the voice of Norman Bates' mother in Psycho.
Wow. Jeanette
Nolan. So, you know, that fascinates me. Those kind of little things, bits of trivia fascinate. But anyway, so I think Koberger's mom, we don't know anything about her. But if I had to guess, he was raised in some sort of conservative kind of environment, you know, where he was taught to be a good boy and that he was special and all this. And I think he's probably always weird as a kid. And, you know, she told him how terrific he was. And my guess is that he was living this double life where if she got the slightest glimpse of his pornography and the way he was thinking about women or whatever, she'd be horrified. And I can't help but think that after the Dateline episode, when all that stuff was on his phone and all that, it came out, I can't help but think that his parents went to him and said, and Bloom said this, Howard Bloom said, that they knew they had to testify, and they said to him, we don't want to. I mean, you know, we look at what we know. You know, they might have had.
Don't you think that I've been involved with quite a few trials. Don't you think they already knew they'd be on the witness list for so many other reasons? Do you think there was something new?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think prior to the Dateline episode, there might have been a denial process.
I see. Okay.
And it comes out, and it's time to say, okay, you know what? There's no getting around this. Something had, I think, make them think. I don't know for sure, but I think something must have made them think we have to accept this now. I see that Ed Gein has been mentioned in the chat. I wrote about him at great length in Weevil. Of course, he had a horrendous mother, quite a doozy of a mother. And there are a number of serial killers who did. Look up, if you have a chance, look up the case of Teresa Noor, Knorr. She's a very interesting mother. And there are some of those. Josh, you had a mother that was the opposite. She was the embodiment of kindness, a model of goodness, right? You were
and a protector.
Protector, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. Honestly, I think about. I don't think about it all the time, but I don't even know. You know, if I didn't have her as a mother, and that I don't know that my sister and I would be here. Because she protected us in so many ways in so many instances. So yes.
Wow.
But I had a father that was completely unhinged and opposite. So
yeah.
You know.
But the caller asks an interesting question. You know, what did they know and when did they know it?
That's I
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting question. I only know that there was that phone call home after the murders that is very disturbing to me. You know, boy, would I like to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You know,
Do we
and what did they
know,
talk about in
Dr.
that bar? You know, what did they talk about on that ride? You know,
Dr. Brucato, do we know that that was really an outlier call? I mean, we don't know the history of did he call them every Sunday morning? I'm
we
wondering
don't
too, that seems like such an outlier, but yet, um,
we don't know. You're
but I
right.
do think, yeah, but I do think there's definitely sunlight that the Dateline opened up, maybe even toward the world, maybe even the world, maybe others approaching the parents of like, come on, like, look at this.
I don't know. I think
Maybe,
not to cast any aspersions, but all I'm saying is that if you look at the cases of people who have these issues, you get two types. You get the type where to understand what happened to them, all you got to do is go to their home and look at all the dynamics. You start to understand the prototype that gave birth to this kind of figure. But then there's other cases where it's all about the double life, and the people around them are authentically confused. And they say, we really can't believe this. This is a guy who, like, the worst thing he ever did was, like, you know, use a cuss word, you know, and now you're telling us he's committed a mass murder and had violent pornography or whatever. And I think this guy is a lot more the double life type.
right.
And
Well, thank
also,
you guys so much.
oh,
Yeah, I'm just, it's really, I'm dying in the future to see what comes to light about, was
yeah,
she an enabler? Did she always defend? Like when he stole the sister's cell phone, was she, did that
right.
have, what kind of role did their relationship play in his pathology? Is my
Well,
curiosity.
the robbery thing is very interesting to me because a lot of these guys that are budding serial killers, that's what I think he was probably, they start out burglars. And, you know, I think with the drug issue and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if he did a bit of stealing. We know that he, you know, robbed from the, or is accused of having robbed from the Korean exchange student who had a crush on him or liked it, whatever, wanted to be friends with him at school. And I think sort of like Ramirez and those guys, there must have been a lot of like learning how to inveigle yourself into houses and take things and all that. That's why it's very hard for me to believe he was not in that house, that Kings Row house at any point. It's very hard for me to believe that he didn't take something from there at some point, you know, whether it was underwear or an object or whatever. But the thing is, that type tends to do that. I mean, listen, I know offenders of this type, cases of offenders of this type, that we find out actually went into a bedroom and watched a person sleep, left, and came back later and killed them. That they like just sitting there watching you in the bed. They rob, they touch the objects, and they're just sitting there in the doorway or whatever, going, and you're snoozing away, and you don't understand that, you know, this person is even there, no less going to kill you later or take things from you. So think about that. This creepy ghoul.
That makes a lot of sense because he also took a neighbor's mom's, I think it was a device, and so I think he was trying to sell it for drugs. So that whole, like, you know, the double life and what else do we not know? That makes total sense.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out that he had some experience with burglary, and that will help answer the question of whether he's a little bit of a psychopath. Because with psychopaths, you tend to see what's called criminal versatility. So there's a dabbling in a whole bunch of things: drugs, burglary, you know, killing, looking at violent pornography, you know, and other kinds of things. And so I think you're going to see that he wasn't the best boy. You know, this is not a Boy Scout. See what I mean? And then the mask
Yes.
starts to go away. And I'll tell you the truth, I think he's relieved. I can't help but think that now that the mask is off, he could just enjoy what he has been in the shadows, you know. Because remember, before he called mom and dad or whatever he did, he was doing like a thumbs up after having killed 4 people.
Psycho. That's crazy.
Anyway, all right. Well, it was a pleasure to
Thank
see you.
Thank you.
You too. You guys are great. You guys are awesome. I really enjoy your show, Josh, and you as a person. And Dr. Brucato, you're another one of those legends like Burgess, and you guys are great. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Take care.
A legend. You believe this? I wish maybe I'll find somebody to eat lunch with. Water everywhere and not a drop to drink.
Well, that was our last call. And before we go, Dr. Gary, just give me 1 second. Yeah. He's a little blurry out. He wants to say hi to everybody.
Oh, look at him. How cute.
Mr. Macho. Come on.
I love his paws.
Come say hi.
Show his paws.
Yes. Show your paws.
Oh my God.
He just pulled it away. He said, "Don't touch
Little eyes. He's the cutest thing
Hi,
ever. I
buddy.
love dogs.
Hi." But he likes this. Watch. Okay, guess not. Ugh. Is that better? He's so cute. I love you, buddy. He always knocks my headphones off too, but after it's like every show that I do, whether it be After Dark or on here, he sleeps for about 2 hours, wakes up, and then demands to be held for a little bit. Here, say hi. Say hi. Come on.
Where's Otis?
Otis is in bed. He doesn't care about any of this shit.
In bed?
Yeah, he's
Their
sleeping
beds?
under the cover. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Can I put you down now? Dr. Gary, thank you so much for being here. I know it's late for you. We had some wonderful calls, and
the way I see it is I'm like 22 hours early for the next show.
That sounds about right.
But these were some really interesting calls. You know,
I thought so.
We really got in there with some people, but I'm a night owl, so this to me is nothing. I mean, I'm going to be like,
watch his ears. Watch this.
I'll do some writing.
Watch his ears.
He's blurry though.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can. It's really hard to function with him.
You have to make him like in focus on the. You have that thing that's blurring out the background.
Yeah. Here we go. Macho, say hi. Watch this. What's that? What's that?
He has absolutely no interest in looking at any of us. Oh, look at him. How old is he?
7.
Oh, there he is. Now he's like hamming it up.
What's that? Look. What's that? See his ears go up when you. What's that? He's protecting the room.
I love when dogs. You ever see when beagles do that thing where they can only like listen with one side of their head? It's like you whistle and they do that tilt.
Yeah,
I love that. I'm crazy about beagles.
Macho, what's that? What's that? Get down.
Now, be honest.
He's mad.
Aren't animals in a lot of ways better companions than human beings? I mean, be honest. So predictable and loving and sweet, and
He's mad. I put him down. He growled when I put him down. He went. Rawr.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why I don't understand people who don't like animals. You have to have some.
Yeah, I'm exactly. I feel that way. I mean, I felt that way since I was a little kid, though. But I remember just recently there was a photo that my sister sent me, and it was a dog just kind of sitting up against the wall, and a little boy was like laying against the dog. And my sister said, "You." That's all she wrote. She said, "You," because that's how she knows. That's how I've always been with any dog that is in my near vicinity. I have to engage the dog. I'd rather pet a dog at my friend's house than talk to people. I'll do both, but usually the dog gets the attention. Always.
But it's funny because I hear these horrifying stories all the time on the news, and so they'll be like, 5 people were murdered today in a mass shooting incident and whatever. And of course, my heart goes out. It's horrifying. But then they're like, and a dog was killed and I'm like,
I know.
I jump out of the chair. Like I feel like
the same way.
Like the idea of that is too much for me to bear. I can't stand it.
Like a video of a person getting hit in the head.
Tell me the dog's okay.
Well, like if a person gets hit in the head with like a football, and they fall over and they're like, "Oh, that hurt." I'd probably chuckle. If I saw that happen to a dog, I'd be like, "Oh my God, is he okay?" It would actually, it hurts my stomach thinking about that. Just that kind of stuff.
Although I have a soft spot for movies where they replace the animal with like a stuffed animal during the scene. Like, for example, and there's something about Mary when he's like having a fight with the fake dog. Or like in the Monty Python, the scene where the rabbit becomes like evil and goes like flying across the cave with fangs. There's like blood on their neck. Something funny about, you know what I'm talking about with their,
I know, they're like,
and then all of a sudden it's like that.
It's like in Happy Gilmore when Chubbs kills the alligator. Like holds it under the water. You remember that?
Of course.
Yeah. I like one of the best parts of that movie is he's all, he took my hand, but I got his eye. And then he goes, I ripped that bastard's eye out. And Happy looks at him, he goes, "You're sick, Chubbs. You know that, right?"
Well, one of the actors from that movie, I won't say his name, left acting, became a neuroscientist and worked with me at Columbia.
Is that right?
He was in the same office as me all the time, and every time I'd see him, I mean, I had to resist quoting the movie.
Shooter McGavin, was it Shooter?
I won't. I'll keep the person's privacy, but that's what happened. That in private life they left acting and became a doctor.
That's awesome. Dr. Gary, I thank you so much, and I know the audience does too. It's been a blast. I said we're not going to do 3 hours. I said that. We did 3 hours. So
I give time away like water. That's the problem.
I love it. You're a great person, and people love listening to you talk. So anyway, we'll wrap it up. But anything on the way out? Make sure to pick up a copy of The New Evil, though. You can get it on Amazon and any major bookstore near you. It's a fascinating read. It's wait, you do have one. Hold on, huh?
Did you actually read the whole book?
Yeah, I've read the whole book, and I was planning on reading it again because I don't comprehend all that well sometimes.
I feel like that book came out of me. I birthed it. It was
like you
write a book about the process of writing that book. It really took a lot out of me. But
Lily G did ask.
Others,
Lily G asked earlier, even if his professor had recognized him for what he is, what could she have done about it? Nothing.
That's not true. I mean, if you know someone is dangerous, of course.
If he had done something, but I mean, even if he's just a creepy guy.
Target then there's like rules of, there's tariffs off and so forth.
But if he's just a creepy person.
But the thing is, you're talking about a situation where you're not evaluating him.
Correct. That's not our job.
You can bring them to the attention of public safety. I mean, I do public safety evaluations for the whole CUNY system in New York. All of them, all the schools in CUNY. It's like one of my little gigs. So that if you are violent or suicidal or whatever, you need an assessment, you're coming to me. And a lot of times people come to the attention of school personnel because somebody has had the wherewithal to point it out. You know what I mean? And then, so there are things that could be done to remove people that pose a risk and all that. But if you have no clue of it, you have no clue of it. You're not assessing the person psychologically. The teachers don't look at people thinking,
exactly,
try to figure out if you're going to go out and do such and such. So I think there tends to be this kind of overly simplistic idea that at all times we are looking at people through a clinical lens. I mean, if I was looking at people through a clinical lens all the time, believe me, I'd have a thing or two to say about them. But I take that hat and I put it over here.
It's like you evaluate me when we talk, but you don't tell.
But I don't. That's what I'm trying to say. I could, but I don't.
Oh no, you do.
I put it because I'm not interested in it.
You're not.
You have to understand, it is not a pleasurable experience walking around with a brain like that. You don't want to do that all day.
I mean, I get it.
I like to be lighthearted. I don't want.
You are lighthearted, and you knit and sew and.
I do not knit.
Whatever.
Dear Lord. You think
have you before?
No, I do a lot of things, but knit is not on them. I paint. I play the piano. I draw. I collect all kinds of things. I know about as much about horticulture and botany as I do about crime.
You crochet.
I write poems and prose, but no, I don't do that.
I think that you could knit a hat. No?
With this?
Yeah.
Where do you get this idea from? You're making me do the Italian hand.
I don't know. You look like somebody who could crochet. It's a big deal. I don't know. Did you like plants?
Liking plants has nothing to do with crocheting. The two are not connected.
I didn't say they were, but they're not connected, but they're sort of in the same, like it's an aisle over at the gardening store.
What are you saying? They're the activities of elderly ladies?
No, I didn't say that. You did.
I sit around, I darn the socks, and I feed the, the colocasia. Are you kidding me?
I don't know. You just look like somebody who could knit. I don't know. You don't look like somebody that can catch a baseball.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right.
But you can knit. You could knit.
I probably could learn to do it because I believe a person could do anything.
Show's over.
If I think a person could do absolutely anything that they set their mind to, I really can. But but listen, I like plants. What can I tell you?
I sewed a blanket in 5th grade. Like that was part of our project.
You're somebody who can sew.
No.
You old so and so.
No, I can't sew, but I did for a project in 5th grade.
Do you have any other talents?
I can juggle.
I think you write very well. I've heard you writing. I think you write well. I love to write. I have a great respect for people who can write.
I like to write a lot. But I also no, I don't know. I used to play baseball. That doesn't count, does it?
Not this again. I think it's a talent. Let's leave it at that.
You know what I was actually really good at? Cup stacking. You know what that is?
What the hell is cup stacking?
It's like when you go and then you break the cups down. I was good at it.
What is the use of this talent?
It didn't say that there was a use. People would watch and go, wow, you did that really fast.
How does that prepare you for the future? Does it make you like?
If there's ever a party where
it's like an engineer thing.
Well, if there's ever a party where some cups need to be collected, I'm your guy. I'll pick them up and I'll put them in the recycle bin. Fast, by the way, not slow. I would like how you would do it. Like you would be crocheting a hat. I'd do it fast.
If you say this one more time,
okay.
Listen. The reality is the problem I have is I make no pretense about anything. So I cannot hide that I have these interests.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. I'm not interested in being anybody but myself.
Sure.
So, you know what I'm saying? So like you're out with somebody and they say, so tell me about your fascinating self. I'm going to tell them, today I deadheaded, some plants and it was the highlight of my life. I was more interested in deadheading these plants than sitting here having this conversation. I mean, and I can't help it. I think that I think whatever is intellectually stimulating, it's just more important to me.
What is it? I mean, really fast. What is it about plants?
Why am I interested in them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
First of all, don't make it sound like I'm sitting around, talking to them, like they're my best buddies or something.
I didn't do
my
that.
Finger in the mouth of Venus flytrap or something and go, here,
would that hurt? Would that hurt you?
No. I think it has to do with the idea that it's nice to have like a heartbeat. Well, they don't have heartbeats, but to have a living thing in the house is nice. And it's the idea of watching something grow. It's like a life force. I like the idea of having a room that's dedicated to living, breathing things, and they're nice and quiet, and they don't, run all over the place. It's a living, a force field of life. So you're out living in a world where all you do is talk about death and murder, and then you sit in there and you watch everything grow. No, I never talked to a tree. You sit there and I'm answering the chat. You sit there and you just feel life. You understand? I like that feeling. What's so bad about that?
No, nothing. I was laughing about the name Sherlock Ho.
I know who that's a friend of mine. So that I appreciate the name very
I thought
much.
it was funny. Yeah, I don't know. I know you like hydrangeas and stuff. That's cool. I don't mind.
Not actually. I don't care for hydrangeas too much.
Really?
No.
No.
But you have to understand. I don't just like plants. I like all living creatures that aren't human. You know what I mean? I'm into humans get on my nerves, but I like all living. I like all living creatures. I'm a big animal buff and a.
Eve Loves God wants to know how many, and you've told us before, but how many plants do you have?
That's a really hard question to answer.
It's not. You just said it the other day. I know it's over 100. And then you say
out in the garden or just like in my private in the house.
I don't know, man.
A lot. and of all varieties from all over the world. I have very exotic things.
I wish I was into stuff
love
like
when
that.
I get packages with labels on them from bizarre places, and they have like the hand, like really weird handwriting on them that translates to like, you know, this has been heavily inspected and is safe to import to the United States. And I open it up and it's some like exotic, bizarre plant. I have a lot of and I'm very interested in mutant plants that have genetic abnormalities. So they're variegated weirdly. They have the wrong colors. They, you know, there's like white patches and yellow patches and pink patches where they're not supposed to exist. That stuff fascinates me. I have
do you ever talk to the plants?
All right. No.
Okay. Who's Your Mom says, and thank you for your donation. I truly praise the Lord for these two men and Chris. Keep going. You all are part of the rare and beautiful human.
Praise the Lord for us.
Yeah. She feels about us the way you feel about your plant.
I think that I shall never see a sight as lovely as a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Trees are beautiful.
What's that? The rest of that line, though. Wait. What? There's a really beautiful line there. Poems are made by men like me, but only God can make a tree. That's it. Something like that. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God could make a tree. Something like that. I got to look it up. I haven't read it in 25 years or something, but I remember it.
If its and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
You have such a way of taking a poetic moment and just whipping it out and urinating. It's just unbelievable. You are exactly that guy that I'd look out the window and say, look at this beautiful snowy scene and the little deer running across, and you would go out and pee in the snow so that I looked out the window and saw like your name written, you know, and then I'd be mad that you didn't properly dot the I or cross the T.
Whatever.
We'd have an argument. I can't. This is your personality. You're a peer in the snow.
I'm a peer in the snow is not a personality type. Dr.
Yes,
Gary, you should not be handing out that kind of medical advice on here. I am a peer in the snow. That's true. You actually profiled me really quickly there. That kind of scares me.
But you are exactly that person that would be like, oh yeah, you like this snowy scene?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. Anyway. All right, Dr. Gary, it's been a blast, and I appreciate you very much. And you are one of the rare good ones. That's a fact. I agree with that. And you know, I don't know what else to say. I keep thinking about
what do you mean good one? Good why? You can
like you're a good person. No, you're a good person.
One of the good ones means.
Well, there's not very many good people in the world anymore.
I don't know. I mean, there's some pretty.
No, there is. There's a lot of. They're just few and they're hard to find.
I like people who, under pressure, show you that they're actually a very good person. Like when everything is terrible, they're the one that's there for you. That's
correct. And I agree with you. I used to say that to my employees all the time. They'd always go, "Oh, that person's a nice person." I said, "Well, you'll see how nice a person is when something goes wrong, how well they treat you when they're dealing with adversity." Right. So I agree with you on that. Dr. Gary, I got to take
Go ahead.
Out. So I appreciate you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Ciao.
All right. Bye-bye. Dr. Gary, always a blast. He's fun. He's fun to goof with, but he's a hilarious, but he's brilliant and just a nice person, a great doctor as well. So anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. So, and thank you everybody for the donations and the new members as well. Let me see. And Jennifer Gilly, thank you so much. You're very kind. And thank you for all the callers as well. We appreciate it. All right, guys. We'll see you soon, and we'll do it again. All right. Take care.